everybody, and good morning to and welcome to you. Welcome to the show. Yeah, this is the show. Yeah, this is the show. Yeah. Hi, good morning. Good morning. Welcome to Wake and Bake with Lolo. I'm Lolo, your host. Your host. And I had to put on a lot of makeup this morning because I was, a little like not, I don't know, just one of those mornings. And I don't like really wearing like a bunch of makeup in the morning, but some days you have to do it. Sometimes you have to wear more makeup than you do in the other days. That's just the way it is. Good morning, Scott. How are you? Good morning, Haggard. How are you, my darling? Ugh, I hope everybody's good. Ugh. I just want to go back out to the desert. Can I just say that? Oh, good morning, HMH Investments. Good morning, Neil. Good morning, Oomph. Poor TFG has to watch MSNBC. Why does he have to watch MSNBC? What happened? I mean, I mean, other than what happened, what is there something else? Oh, he said MSNBC, NSBNC. Oh, okay. BNC. Okay. Sorry. Didn't I didn't wake up in time for that joke. We have a lot this morning. Oh my god. We've got we've got Oomp's favorite. They don't know what the fuck they're doing. Oh, MSBNC doesn't know what the fuck they're doing. Is that what we're doing now? Okay. Good morning, J Rance. Hi, Lee. Oh, happy staycation. I only use this phone when the other phone's charging. It's an old business name. I might renew. It sounds very fancy. HMH Investments. Easily distracted. Hello, good morning. Good morning, good morning. Happy Tuesday. I hope you're doing fine. Israel and Iran don't know. What the fuck? Really? MSBNC is very bad. Wow, I really missed it. Did he say something? Clumpty dropped an F bomb? What? Wait, what the fuck? Am I missing something right now? What happened? Where did he? What? I knew him claiming victory last night was a real bad idea. What's this? Reviews nominations for military campaign. I didn't see that one come up. Wait, let me just see what's going on. This is. Oh wait, I don't like Fox though. I wish I could find what you guys were talking about. MSBNC. Putin threatens to enter the war. That's from a dumb station. Don't believe me. But I just love when the. Oh, thank you, J Rance. God, you're the best. Frick and frack and frick and thank you. Go to signal. 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 Patrick the lid. Patrick the lid. Patrick the lid. Oh, is this it? He's big mad. That's what J-Ran says. Wait, okay, here we go. This is a good way to wake up, actually. I think this will be good for me. Hi, Peter. How you doing? Paul J. Hello, dear. How are you? Good to see you. Excellent to see you. All right, hold on. I don't know what I'm doing here. Oh, shit. It's right there. Okay. Fuck, man. I'm like, ugh. I wish I was caught up with this morning. Okay, here we go. Here we go. He looks like, I think Owen Wilson should play him in the movie. What do you guys think? Okay, I think Owen Wilson should play him in the movie. That's what I'm saying. I'm just going to lay it out there. I see Owen Wilson. I don't know what you guys see, but I see Owen Wilson. I'm just saying. The B and the B and MSBNC stands for Biden. Aw, look at his 88-foot long pole, though. Okay, he's got the 88-foot long pole. A nightmare of epic proportions. He is a nightmare of epic proportions. And this is why I didn't want to be also fighting open fascism. Thank you. Thank you. Like, could we just fight a few battles?
Israel says that Iran violated the peace agreement and the ceasefire agreement. Do you believe that Iran is still committed to peace?
Yeah, I do. They violated it, but Israel violated it too.
Are you questioning if Israel is committed?
Israel, as soon as we made the deal, they came out and they dropped a load of bombs, the likes of which I've never seen before. The biggest load that we've seen. I'm not happy with Israel. You know, when I say, okay, now you have 12 hours, you don't go out in the first hour and just drop everything you have on them. So I'm not happy with them. I'm not happy with Iran either. But I'm really unhappy if Israel's going out this morning because of one rocket that didn't land, that was shot, perhaps by mistake, that didn't land. I'm not happy about that. You know what? We basically have two countries that have been fighting so long and so hard that they don't know what the fuck they're doing. Do you understand that?
What? Who likes the fuck they're doing?
Do you believe that Iran is still committed to peace?
Yeah, I do.
So apparently he does have a real potty mouth. Apparently I think I've heard that through some of his Nick Nolte. Okay, Nick Nolte, but do you see my point? Owen Wilson, do you see Owen Wilson? You see Owen Wilson in this face right here? I do. Of course there should be no movie. Well, there will be a movie. This is not this is not a place of honor. No. Not all good people get movies. Sometimes bad people get them too. So hopefully, yeah, thank you. See Owen. Grumpy Orange said the F-bomb this morning. Hi, Walk by Faith, and everything is the likes I've never seen before. Clayberg asks, is that real? In the signal chat. Is that real? I love that we're shocked that he says the F word. Out with the orange and in with the new. Yes, I agree. I agree. There should be a documentary like the Nuremberg. Owen Wilson can be a very a serious actor too. Wait, what meowing star was that? A fast food bag in his hand as he was walking away? Let's take a look. Let's take a look and see if it was.
Fighting so long
Might have been his
so
colostomy bag. Oh my god! Oh no, it's his hat. It's his hat. It looked like a bag. It really looked like a bag, meowing star. But it was his hat. But it would have been funny if it was like tacos. I think that would have been a good one. That would actually been really like a good thing. Oh my god. My hair is a mess. Damn, I'm still gonna giggle. No, I'm telling you right now, that probably should. Well, I mean, there's a fast food bag in his future, meowing star. Believe me, he's he's absolutely gonna encounter a bag of fried food. Alex Baldwin, I guess so easily. Yeah, I could see that, but he's not a very good serious actor, Alex or Alec, whatever the fuck his name is. Yeah, Owen can play the younger version, and Nolte can play the old. Yeah, and yeah, I don't know, but I'm not a casting director. That's a damn big cap. Yeah, he's got a big. I know, right, Neil? I think it's one of those oversized old guy hats. You know how when you get to a certain age, your hat gets bigger. I don't know why. I'm not sure why, but it does. Anyway, well, that was interesting. When did he say the thing about MSBNC? What did I miss there? What did he say about that? Oh, let me tell you what else we have this morning, okay? Because you have choices. Here at the Lolo's Lounge, you have choices. All right, so where to start? Where to begin? Has to cover that big ass head and whatever kind of animal he calls here. Where's the lie? Where's the lie? Where's the lie? Oh, his Nobel Peace Prize nomination was withdrawn. What? What? But he had the peace deal yesterday. It was yesterday, yeah, sure, but it could come back. Oh, Zelensky making his address. He was making it earlier. Oh my God, thank you, Jay, because I was actually watching that a tiny bit as I was making my coffee. Let me just quickly show you what we've got here, okay? Oh, earlier, same clip, okay. So we've got this guy talking about his funding request, which should be spicy. You're checking in at each spotlight. Oh, stoplight. Idly, be careful out there. And then we've got this securing America's mineral future, unlocking the economic value beneath our feet. So we've got a mining thing. Okay. I'm going to the NATO summit. Don't worry. And then the last oops, that's not the last thing I had. I had something else. Yeah. Oh, this is later today, though. So we probably won't see this one. But so don't worry about that. But we've got a mineral thing and we've got the health secretary. And let me try and find NATO because he was speaking to NATO, Zelensky was. So let me find that. Go to my history. Oh, the other thing we have is Jerome Powell, Foxy Jerome Powell. He's gonna be there. What's this? That's just the news. Oh, I just don't know where to begin. Ooh. Ooh. Oh, this I think is the whole clip from Fox. Hold on.
You got to be including that. You cannot fund the proxies. You cannot have ballistic missiles. You certainly can't have a nuclear program.
Sorry.
Mm-hmm. Right. And, you know.
Hold on. Watch this while I try to find the other thing.
Straight to a Fox News alert. President Trump says he's unhappy with both Israel and Iran, saying both nations violated their bilateral ceasefire agreement.
The president warning Israel that any military action will go against the deal after a senior Israeli official told Fox News that they will have to retaliate with force against Iran's missiles.
So the president right now is heading to the Netherlands to meet with NATO leaders. Here's what he said right before he left. Watch.
I don't think so, but I'm not happy that Israel's going out now. There was one rocket that I guess was fired overboard. It was after the time limit, and it missed its target. And now Israel's going out. These guys got to calm down. Ridiculous.
How are you going to respond at the ceasefire?
I didn't like plenty of things I saw yesterday. I didn't like the fact that Israel unloaded right after we made the deal. They didn't have to unload. And I didn't like the fact that the retaliation was very strong.
I'm very confused.
But in all fairness, Israel unloaded a lot. And now I hear Israel just went out because they felt it was violated by one rocket that didn't land anywhere. That's not what we want, I'll tell you. And I'm telling you, I'm not happy about that, Israel, either. All I do is play both sides. I'm going now, as you know, to NATO. Some of you are going with me, and I think it's going to be successful. We'll see. I'll let you know.
Are you going to be the agreement with the new dawn in the Middle East, essentially the agreement you managed to achieve? What are your future plans for the region, for Saudi Arabia, Israel, Gaza, be hostages?
Look, you're asking me about women in the Middle East. It's getting a lot better. Things are happening at a high level. As you know, Saudi Arabia's done a really good job. It's coming out.
Saudi Arabia's done a great job.
Far,
No, they haven't.
far faster than I thought.
Go fuck themselves.
So we're very happy about what's happening with women in the Middle East.
No,
Yeah,
I'm
good
talking about
fucking
the
morning,
a new
Badger.
zone in the Middle East that you managed to achieve last night.
Yeah.
It's in, the region is going to a new place with the visit
true.
agreements. Can you talk what's the super plan for Gaza, with the hostages?
Yeah. It's a new dawn. I appreciate the question. You're very nice. Who are you?
Thank you. I'm Nariya Kraus from Israeli Tunnel
Sorry,
for 2 years.
Well, we have to have Israel calm down because they went on a mission this
Whoa.
morning. I got to get Israel to calm down now.
Did you get to speak with the Prime Minister? Did you talk to Prime Minister Netanyahu last night?
I took everybody.
You know, both sides not to violate the ceasefire, but reports coming from the region suggest that the sides accuse each other for violating the ceasefire. So
I think
what
they
if
both
you
violated it. I don't think I'm not sure they did it intentionally. They couldn't rein people back. I don't like the fact that Israel went out this morning at all, and I'm going to see if I can stop it. So
Yeah,
as soon as I get
exactly,
away from
Meowster.
you, I'm going to see if I can stop it, okay?
Men at high levels are making it great for women again.
I think it's been completely demolished. I think the reason we're here is because those pilots, those B-2 pilots, did an unbelievable job. And the fake news, like CNN in particular, they're trying to say, well, I agree that it was destroyed, but maybe not that destroyed. You know what they're doing? They're really hurting great pilots that put their lives in the line. CNN
They're
is
hurting
scum,
the feelings.
and so is MSDNC. They're all,
DNC.
and frankly, the networks aren't much better. It's all fake news, but they should not have done that. Those pilots hit their targets. Those targets were obliterated, and the pilots should be given credit. They're not after the pilots; they're after me. They want to try and demean.
It's true. It's true. Nobody
Iran
wants
will
to
never
insult the
rebuild its
pilots.
nuclear. From there, absolutely not. That place is under rock. That place is demolished.
Okay, the interesting thing about this is, as many of you know, is that there's satellite evidence that they moved material out of the places that were bunker busted at least 12 hours before the bunkers were busted. So understand that the Iranians were able to at least move some material out of the way before the bombs dropped. So, yeah, not maybe the most successful operation, but that's okay. We'll let him think what he wants to think right now.
B-2 pilots did their job. They did it better than anybody could even imagine. They hit late in the evening. It was dark with no moon, and they hit that target with every one of those things, and that place is gone. But when I see CNN all night long, they're trying to say, well, maybe it wasn't really as demolished as we thought. It was demolished. You take a look at the pinpricks, and you see that place is gone. And I will say, I think CNN ought to apologize to the pilots of the B-2s.
Yeah,
I think that MSDNC ought to apologize.
JFK.
I think these guys really, these networks and these cable networks are real losers. You really are.
Give him a bunch of coke and put him in front of the camera now.
Israel says that they violated the peace.
You're gutless losers. I say that to CNN because I watch it. I have no choice. I got to watch that garbage. It's all garbage. It's all fake news. But I think CNN is a gutless group of people. And the people that run it, nobody even knows it's been sold so many times.
Lisa. Do you think
But
we'll
the
get lucky
people that
enough
run
to
it
see
ought
the
to be
vein
ashamed.
pop on live TV? Gosh, I
MSDNC, a
hope
guy
so.
named Brian Roberts, he heads it. He's a
Well, you didn't
disgrace.
have to
He's
get
a
rid
weak,
of that.
pathetic disgrace.
Says that Iran violated the peace agreement and the ceasefire agreement. Do you believe that Iran is still committed to peace?
Yeah, I do. They violated it, but Israel violated it too.
Are you questioning if Israel was committed?
Israel, as soon as we made the deal, they came out and they dropped a load of bombs, the likes
wanna
of which
see what
I've
the
never
hosts say
seen
about
before.
him dropping
The
the
biggest
F-bomb.
load that we've seen. I'm not happy with Israel. You know, when I say, okay, now you have 12 hours, you don't go out in the first
And I don't
hour and
even
just
own a
drop
TV.
everything you have on them. So I'm not happy with them. I'm not happy
Everything
with Iran
you have?
either. But
Wow.
I'm really unhappy if Israel's going out this morning because the one rocket that didn't land, that was shot, perhaps by mistake, that didn't land. I'm not happy about that. You know what? We basically have two countries that
I'll take
have been
things
fighting
Putin
so
and
long
MBS
and
would say
so
for
hard
1,000,
that they
Alex.
don't know what the they're doing. Do you understand that?
Wow, and that's too. A lot of people are talking about the expletive at the end, but that's he just being honest.
He's furious.
Oh, yeah,
I had
he's
the
just
opportunity
being
to just talk
honest,
to him before we
folks.
just went on air for the 8 o'clock hour, and I said, I haven't seen you this upset in a
This
while.
guy's a
What's
fucking
really
dick,
going
by
on?
the way. He's
He
been
had
a
just hung up
consistent
with
dick
Bibi
on Fox this
Netanyahu, the prime
entire
minister.
time.
He said that the prime minister is bringing all the planes back.
MSDNC,
I said, why are you so
yeah.
frustrated with Israel? And he says, because he didn't feel like it was good faith. That even though they still had some time until the ceasefire, that they essentially unloaded on Iran. I said,
Yeah.
what about Iran as it relates to some of the reports that they're still doing their program? He says they got to save face for the country. They still got to appear to be strong. But he goes,
Okay, I'm not listening to his deep analysis of this. This guy's a prick. A load of bombs, the likes of which I've never seen before. I've never seen a load like that. That's what she said. Says the guy that drops singularly enormous bombs. Says the guy that took one of the most expensive planes we have, flew them over and dropped bombs into these bunker busters. Well, that's fun. There you go. And I don't even own a TV. That's right. I was reading Rolling Stone that the Pentagon had to create a secondary attack for Trump's consumption because they feared Trump would blurt out details about the real attack. I heard that too. I think Jim was talking about that on the space last night. That they were afraid that Trump would let loose the plan, so they had to come up with different, like the Guam thing to move stuff over, to move planes to Guam and all that. So yeah, I think he's out of control in a certain way, but within that works for them. He's out of control in a way that works for them. Notice nobody is stopping him yet. Okay. No donors are stepping in. Nobody's like, we're not hearing any of those rumbles. Nobody is stopping him from what he's doing. So for whatever adults might be close by, they are fine with this chaos. And Congress is just they're afraid of being primaried, which is so bizarre to me, but whatever. Or they have tapes that they need hidden, that kind of stuff. Yeah, you should not be saying load and violate or the biggest load I've ever seen. Like, this is a porn movie waiting to be made. Felon Flynn is directing this skit. Do you think he is? Because I think Mike Flynn has been somewhat sidelined in the moment. Now, I don't think Flynn is ever too far out of the mix. But I do think he's a little bit on the sideline right now because he's right now he's the chair of the West Point PTA. So he's really busy planning an ice cream social for July for the West Point PTA. And I think he's got his hands full with that. I'm just kidding. I really enjoyed that crypto lady. I am sticking with the free chicken dinner. Yeah. Yeah, she was interesting. I didn't quite get if she was with it, like into it or not into it, or I don't know, because she sounded like she was trying to sell the Genius Act to us, but then she would say, no, I'm not a crypto fan. I didn't know what to think, but that's me too. Sometimes I can't take people in all at once. You know what I mean? How about the new Twitter profile pic though? His new. Yes, that's true. Actually, J Rans, what was brought up last night in the space is that Mike Flynn has a new profile pic, right? And it used to be some kind of QE type thing, some kind of Q feels. But now it's like a straight up, LinkedIn headshot. And I think that I definitely think that, and Jim knows better than a lot of people, is that West Point PTA. That's right. That is a great song. When Billy Joe McAllister jumped off the Tallahatchie Bridge. Yeah, that's not the song though, isn't it? Harper Valley PTA is a different one. Damn it. Okay, it's a good song though. Anyway, in my opinion, crypto is still a pyramid scheme to benefit the gazillionaires and they facilitate money laundering. I think you're right in many respects, Max. I think it's ahead of itself in terms of what it thinks it is and how well it's being, like regulated and stuff. Like I didn't really get an answer to my questions last night about, well, but does the Genius Act like you know pr- eliminate oversight and things like that? And so I don't think you can have transparency without oversight. I don't think that's true, because it is pretty clear to me that people can hide wallets. It is not tied to your social security number, okay, people? It's not tied to your social security number. It's literally, like something you can put in a shell company and stuff like that. So forgive me if I'm not buying it's transparent, like I'm just not buying that. And that's just me. But I think I am not a Luddite. I understand that, I do understand that, crypto is here to stay. So we need to understand it, and we need to figure out what guardrails you put around it. It doesn't explicitly eliminate oversight, but it definitely weakens it. Yeah, and I think just the actions that the administration has taken to weaken the overall oversight, and they're very clear about their intention to eliminate oversight in many respects. So, yeah, exactly. Packaged derivatives, just like 2008, no value, nothing to back. And yet they have these stable coins, Helena. Good morning. And that's, so there's, again, I'm not poo-pooing the whole concept of a different currency or other things. I think that is a normal progression. And we're here. I mean, crypto exists, so we do have to kind of understand it and deal with it. So I think that, but this is where I feel like pushing for really good regulation is really imperative. And I also understand, although I hate it, that the Genius Act, in some ways, for some of the Democrats, was like, we've got to have something, right? And I get that too. I need to read all of the Genius Act to really understand what it can and cannot do. Because it did have quite a few Democrat votes in the House, so something to be mindful of. But let me go back to here. Let's see. What is your theory about the donors? They're okay with the shenanigans because they can push their agendas while everyone is distracted. I really think that's probably true, Jane, if you think about it, because if you look at the big beautiful bill and the other bullshit bill is what we call it, but if you look at those different the different measures that have been quietly talked about in Congress, don't forget they have those rules committees and all these things, which are very dry committees normally, but that's where the real work is being done to codify eliminating protections for environmental, right? There's a ton of little tiny codifications within these bills that strip away environmental protections and other things. And so I very much believe that my eye is always on someone like a Russ Vought, right? Who's the head of the Office of Management and Budget, who's the guy who has been illegally impounding approved appropriations from Congress, cutting off grants, all that kind of stuff, right? So that's one area where I think you're seeing what the damage is done while we have to pay attention to these other very important things. You see that, foreign wars can also be a distraction for domestic, violence at home, right? The police state in Los Angeles, the kidnapping of people off the street, right? So there's a lot of different situations and scenarios that they need distraction from. And so that's why I think the donor class isn't too upset about the shenanigans and the kind of ham-handedness. I feel like they are behind the scenes, and the front of the scenes is really the circus, right? And you've got this douchebag propped up as kind of a, he's propped up like a, let me see what time it is. 7, okay. You have him propped up as a kind of ringmaster, but he's not really a ringmaster, right? He's just wearing the suit. He's not really the ringmaster. We all know that. So you've got Dump as this kind of fucked up ringmaster, right? And then you've got the cabinet, which are all the kind of clowns that are distracting you from when the lion is eating the lion tamer. So Kennedy, this guy, Oz, Gabbard, Pam Bondage, Beasley Besant, who's a little more dangerous. But all of these guys, Sean Duffy, all these clowns are just the idiots who think it's great that they were chosen to stand up and tell incredible lies and fuck with the people of the United States. They think it's great, but they're really not the decision makers, right? And so it's clear to me that people like Stephen Miller, right, who's probably directed through Susie Wiles, and I don't know what his relationship is to Ginny Thomas, but I think it's more that the people behind are perfectly fine with this kind of outward chaos because it allows them to continue the machination behind them, and just kind of keep clawing away at the insides of our democracy, frankly, right? SCOTUS, same thing. So unfortunately, we're trying, and we intend on just paying attention to all of it because that's the only choice we have is to pay attention to all of it. Flynn, I believe, according to Jim, it would not surprise anyone to see Flynn angling for the NSA job, which I guess is still open technically because it's under Marco Rubio at the State Department. So he could be angling for his old NSA job. I wondered if the whole Tulsi Gabbard is an idiot campaign that's been happening in the MAGA world, kind of poo-pooing Tulsi. I wondered if that was a way to get Mike Flynn in as DNI. Or not DNI. I guess that's Ratcliffe. Whatever she is. What is she? Now I don't even know what she is. But anyway, so I think Mike Flynn is definitely angling to be a real boy again because I think he's tired of being on the sidelines. I think he probably is real bitter because him and Patrick Byrne, with their merry band of assholes, really tried to do as much work as they could to overturn the 2020 election. And I feel like Mike Flynn probably felt like he really put his ass on the line for that and put money behind it. And so I could see a world where he's pretty upset. He's pretty upset about not being part of the inner circle. But, I could be wrong. Who knows who's what friend and all that kind of stuff. Can't be worse than Midnight Hammer. Sounds like something Whiskey Pete would say in a drunken attempt to get some poor woman in bed. Yeah, and then I said, go ahead and drop the bombs as part of my Midnight Hammer. Oh, really? West Point BTA. I didn't know about here too, but then I fell asleep. Yeah. Each of those 30,000-pound bombs had roughly the same explosive force of an atomic weapon dropped on Hiroshima. Our conventional weapons are just horrors these days. Oh, absolutely, Meowing Star. And I worry, that's a big problem that we just don't know. And I don't know. I heard over my shoulder kind of thing, so I don't know which outlet it was. I think it was Fox. Was talking about the fact that there is probably there's been detected radiation above where the bunker busters were blown up, which of course I would find very easy to believe. So I do wonder, we haven't really talked about that. Alex Padilla voted for the Genius Act. I know, Carrie, there's a bunch of Democrats. There's like 16 or 12 or 16 Democrats that voted for it. And I think they were able to get some concessions in the last version of the bill. I haven't read the last version of the bill, so we should probably read it. That would be a good idea. Refers to the latest GBU-AB massive ordnance penetrator bomb in America's arsenal, roughly 30,000-pound precision-guided bomb. We dropped 14? Oh my God, I didn't realize it was 14. Why did I think it was 6? Not dry when we watch it in the lounge. That's right. All planned, premeditated via Project 2025. Yes, absolutely, 100%. Oh, you posted the interview with Blue Sky? Okay. Can you tag me in that, or if possible? I may not see it right away. I bet Loomer is hounding them to give Flynn a seat. I would imagine. I'm kind of surprised he hasn't gotten something sooner. I don't think he's that. Of a pariah, But I guess, I don't know, maybe he just got passed over. I don't know, maybe this is it. Yeah, they do want to relitigate 2020 again, and that's something to watch out for. Gal Squad has been pulling a lot of stuff on that because they really are trying to push that. I don't know to what end. I imagine it's to, I don't know, just imprison a lot of Democrats. I think that's what they want to do. I don't know. Yeah, let's litigate it first. Yeah, just because Whiskey Pete was hammered at midnight. Carrie, that's probably how he came up with the name. Midnight Hammered. Oh, I posted it in my Blue Sky. Oh, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. All right, let's go to my Blue Sky. Blue Sky, Blue Sky, Blue Sky. You know what I want to do? I want to sing. Trump advisor. Oh, there you are. Okay, hold on. Trump advisor. Trump advisor. Is that what we're calling him now? Interesting.
Victory, a victory.
Victory. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Here's little Mikey Flynn. Hold on. Hold on. Here's little Mikey Flynn. Let me tell you about him. Let me tell you about a boy named Flynn. This is a boy named Flynn. Hi, Mike. Good to see you again. Did you see the NYTP's Justice Department leader suggested violating court orders? Whistleblower says ML Bove voiced his intent to disobey court orders as others stonewalled. No, I hadn't seen that. That's a great piece. Thank you so much. I did read this morning that the IAEA has detected radiation at the Natanz site. Israel bombed, but it was confined to the site. Ah, okay. Thanks, Meowing Star. That's probably what I overheard, and I just didn't realize it. Yeah, let's litigate it first. Okay, here we go. This is Mikey Flynn. Little Mikey Flynn. I'm not going to listen to the whole thing, but we'll do what we can.
Victory by Israel establishes the perception, if not the reality, of U.S. global dominance. We're involved, Steve. We're involved. We provide intelligence capabilities, certainly to Israel. We provide all kinds of weapon systems. We provide all kinds of training support. So China. That's what I want your audience to understand.
Oh,
we have
it's
to
not
allow
really a movie.
Israel to finish the job. It will allow the United States to fully shift to focusing on China. So whatever the regime is that rises up out of the ashes, if we have a positive relationship with that regime, that really benefits the United States of America,
well,
particularly
we did bomb
against
the fuck
China,
out of
and
them,
it weakens
so let's,
China.
Hold on. Is he
a retired U.S. general who served as national security advisor for Donald?
Is he supporting the Shah's son to come back? Does anybody know? Have we heard him mention the Shah's son at all? Because he's putting in his bid to run Iran again. So, who's Ben? Who are
Trump, in his first term as U.S. president,
like you
has
have
come out
some
and
drugs,
admitted
Ben.
that the United States is deeply involved in the war on Iran.
Yeah.
That the goal of the U.S. and Israel is to overthrow Iran's government.
So thank y'all for being here. The chair now recognizes himself for 5 minutes for an opening statement. It's my pleasure to begin today's hearing by welcoming the Secretary of Health and Human Services, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., to the House Energy and Commerce Committee Subcommittee on Health.
Hold on, I got to do this.
Thank you, Secretary Kennedy, for coming before the committee to discuss the fiscal year 2026 budget for the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services. In 2023, our nation spent an estimated $4.9 trillion on health care. That's nearly 20% of our gross domestic product. And when it comes to per-person health care spending, the United States far surpasses every other nation in the world. And yet, America's health outcomes still lag behind our peers. Life expectancy in the U.S. is lower than other developed economies.
Why do they all hate us?
And rates of infant and maternal mortality, obesity, diabetes, and heart disease are higher. At the same time, public trust in government health agencies has eroded. The results of our record-breaking spending speak for themselves, and that's unacceptable. The system isn't just expensive, it's failing the very people it's meant to serve. Currently in the United States, 3 in 4 adults experience one or more chronic conditions. In 2013, no state had adult obesity prevalence at or above 35%. Fast forward to 2023, 23 states had 35% or higher adult obesity rates. According to the CDC in my home state of Georgia, 35% of
My
adults
punch
are
Nazi
obese,
shirt.
and 1 in 10 adults are living with 3 or more chronic conditions. During my time as a pharmacist, I saw firsthand the toll that diet-related chronic diseases can have on individuals and families due to rising health care premiums, out-of-pocket costs, and missed work.
That's what I'm wearing.
The financial impact is astronomical,
outfit.
not
Yes.
to mention how taxing the physical, emotional, and mental burdens can be. Just looking
Paul
at the
Lynde and
impact of
Colonel Sanders
diabetes,
were
the
the
United
same
States
person.
spends
Exactly,
more than
Carla.
$327
I love Paul
billion
Lynde. R.I.P.
each year combating the disease, with $237 billion spent on medical costs and another $90 billion in productivity
Isn't it
losses.
great? Etsy.
America needs a new prescription, a clear, bold vision for the future. We
it
can
was
no
like
longer afford to simply
26
throw
bucks
more
on
money
Etsy.
at this problem and hope for change. It is time to break from the old ways and embrace innovative, courageous ideas that will truly make America healthy again. I'm looking forward to hearing more about how
I'm sorry.
HHS is working to improve healthcare access for America.
I just don't believe it's going to make America healthy again. I don't think so. I don't think so. I'm not listening to him right now. He's definitely turned off. So hold on just a minute. I'll give him
testing
noise.
So many of us here today are committed to a more efficient drug development process, and I'm encouraged by the FDA's roadmap to reduce animal testing in preclinical safety studies through the use of innovative.
Do take a look at the I know, middle part, really? Thanks, Carla. I appreciate you saying that. Check out Gal's link right there to an Aaron Reichland-Melnick post about this, about Emil Bove, who's been a shithead that the Gal Squad has known about for a minute, okay? But do take a look at the link that Gal has shared. Thank you. I mean, I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just suggesting it. Okay, thanks. Oops. Oh, I just turned him off. Sorry.
In the budget process in earnest.
Sorry.
Again, I appreciate you being here today. I look forward to hearing how the proposed HHS budget will advance President Trump's mission of making America healthy again. I now recognize the gentlelady from Colorado, Representative DeGette, for 5 minutes for an opening statement.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. HHS and its crown jewels, agencies like the NIH and FDA, have championed amazing breakthroughs that until this year have accelerated, making us the undisputed world leader in curing disease. The cancer death rate in the U.S. dropped by 34% from 1991 to 2022. We now have an antiviral that cures Hep C in 95% of the cases. And globally, vaccination has saved 154 million lives since 1974. These achievements were driven by federally funded biomedical research and by public health professionals serving at HHS. Sadly, the Trump administration, beginning with DOJA's shocking and mystifying cuts, is imperiling our health and that of future generations. The department has created chaos by indiscriminately firing new employees, pushing established experts into retirement, and implementing poorly conceived reductions in force. These cuts were done haphazardly and without regard to HHS needs, present or future. In addition to inexplicable, chaotic layoffs, the department has frozen and slashed grants, politicized science, and added bureaucratic red tape. While some work has been reinstated, in large part due to court orders, every member in this room, on both sides of the aisle, has heard from public health organizations and research universities in their districts about the abrupt halting of funding. I don't have time to go over all the important funding cut just at the University of Colorado, but it includes a researcher studying whether and how airborne contaminants, including glyphosate, impact chronic kidney disease, and another looking into whether viral infection accelerates Alzheimer's disease. Research labs are closing. Americans are dying waiting for care. Promising clinical trials are being delayed. And scientific research, which is the lifeblood of our communities, is stopping. I think we all read the article in the Washington Post last week about the Georgia man with metastatic cancer whose treatment in a clinical trial has been delayed because of a lack of essential lab personnel. Thanks to the chaos this administration has caused, his life is on the line. Why make these cuts?
He really thinks he's a king, doesn't he, Gal?
Many research cancellations appear not to be driven by concerns rooted in science, but in biases completely unrooted in evidence, such as the Secretary's animus towards mRNA technology. He ignores that COVID-19 vaccination prevented 3.2 million deaths in the U.S. between December 2020 and November 2022. Under the Secretary's leadership, the Maha Commission, which met once behind closed doors and conducted an opaque process without public input, released an error-ridden report that misrepresented researchers' work, made up sources, and included AI hallucinated information. In looking at chronic disease and how environmental factors influence it, the Secretary has identified some real problems. Those problems demand rigorous study, and I know I and all my colleagues stand ready to work collectively to address them.
Oh, it's bad.
But the federal workers who were unceremoniously fired could likely have helped develop a useful and informative report.
All this group.
The Secretary is here today to defend his fiscal year 2026 budget. This budget is a roadmap to continue the chaos of the past several months and a blueprint for a sicker and poorer America. This budget seeks to cut the NIH by 40%. What that means is less NIH-funded research, fewer high-quality studies, and a shrinking base of scientific talent in the United States. NIH-funded research underpinned nearly every single drug approval in the U.S. from 2010 to 2019. In this budget, the Secretary calls for eliminating programs to prevent death and disease, such as the National Diabetes Prevention Program, the Tobacco Prevention Control Program, and, with what you said, Mr. Chairman, the Safe Motherhood and Infant Health Program. This budget would also train fewer health care providers, even as our population ages. It deeply cuts workforce development programs, including those that place doctors in underserved areas. We need more doctors, not less. I started by talking about our successes. These victories were driven by the very programmers, researchers, and public health professionals.
We're having a documentary tonight on Discord in case you have our Discord.
As a result, I fear the U.S. is quickly losing its international position as the leader in public health and biomedical innovation. The decline this budget fuels will cost American jobs, and it will cost American lives. I call on my colleagues on both sides of the aisle and both sides of the Capitol to reject this budget and work together to promote the health and build on our greatest success stories. I yield back.
The gentlelady yields. The chair now recognizes the chairman of the full committee, Chairman Guthrie, for 5 minutes for an opening statement.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Secretary, for being here today. Thank you, Chairman Carter, for the time. And I'd like to welcome you to the Energy and Commerce Committee, and it's good to have you with us today. HHS has become the largest spender of our federal departments. And whether at the pharmacy counter, doctor's office, or dinner table, HHS work impacts Americans every single day. The core mission of HHS is to enhance the health and well-being of all Americans, but Americans are increasingly frustrated by a system that has become inefficient and too expensive. That is why President Trump's pledge to make America healthy again resonates with voters across the country. The American people spoke loudly and clearly when they rejected business as usual in November, and already in the first few months of the administration has taken significant strides to challenge the status quo. The budget we'll be discussing today rethinks how HHS accomplishes the mission of enhancing the health and well-being of all Americans. Like many other departments across the federal government, HHS has ballooned over the past 4 years. In fiscal year 24, HHS was responsible for 25% of federal.
I do have to interrupt because Jerome Powell's also doing his semi-annual monetary policy report in front of the GOP Financial Services Committee. So we can do both. But do you have one you want to watch more first? HHS or the financial report from Jerome Powell? Anybody have a strong preference? You know what? We're just going to keep going with this, and then I'll come to Jerome Powell afterwards. Fuck it.
Federal spending.
Oh, sorry. We went live because...
While some of the bigger proposal had consumed headlines, there are countless examples
can we watch Powell?
that reflect
Yeah, we can
this
watch
administration's
Powell.
mission to modernize.
We'll come back to this one. Oh, no, we'll watch them both. It's no problem. We'll watch them both. But I just want to see... the Powell one might be a little shorter to get out of the way.
comment on President Biden's proposal for the American Rescue Plan
or
sharply increasing federal spending. And, you know, you said it was an issue, but that you would stay in your lane
Sorry.
and not
So this is
comment on
Powell
it.
for
But
now.
here in
We're going to
this
go back to
year, you have
HHS. Please don't worry.
commented
We're going to go
on
back.
This idea of tariffs being set by the executive branch. So
We go where you
are
go.
tariffs
Well,
in your
ultimately
lane,
you do, but
a huge fiscal
I do care what you
spending
think,
by the Biden administration not in your lane. Explain to the committee why you chose to be silent in February of 21, but outspoken this spring.
Sure. So we haven't commented, and it would be inappropriate for us to comment on the policy of tariffs. We don't have a view. It's not our job, and we just wouldn't do that. And just as we wouldn't comment on the reconciliation package that you're working on right now. We're not commenting on tariffs. What our job is inflation, keeping inflation under control, and also keeping maximum employment. And when policies have what appear to be short and medium-term implications, meaningful implications for that, then they kind of, not the policies themselves, but the inflation becomes our job.
Yeah. You know my views on price stability. I think it's a first among equals in your dual mandate. I've argued for that. I've introduced legislation to make the dual mandate the sole mandate, and we've talked about that before. But I was very curious about your thoughts on former president of the Cleveland Bank, Loretta Mester's
have some toast.
quote that I read from last fall. She says, I think that maximum employment is the maximum level of employment consistent with price stability. In other words, she elegantly ties that together, that price stability is what you can have more control over rather than, you know, all these other factors that enter the employment picture like legislative and executive branch. What's your thought about her quote?
I personally think that's a very reasonable way to think about it.
Thank you very much. I yield back. The gentleman from New York is recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning, Mr. Chair, Chair Powell, and thank you for being here. Last week, the FOMC decided to maintain the target range for the federal funds rate at 4.25%
dump is
to
such a fucking child.
4.5%. While I was not surprised by the decision to hold rates steady, I was surprised by the committee's revised forecast since March, which represented a decrease of 0.3 percentage points for GDP, a similar increase for core PCE, and an uptick in the unemployment rate to 4.5%. Can you explain the incoming data that the committee has seen since March that caused it to make these adjustments?
Sure. So first of all, these are individual. This is not a committee forecast. These are just individuals submitting their own personal, forecasts, and we don't bless those as a committee. But I think people are looking at the incoming data and having a range of different judgments. If you look at the range, if you look at the central tendency, you'll see that it covers quite a wide range. Those are the medians that you're talking about. I think so. Inflation is projected to have moved up because of what we've seen, particularly from tariffs. And I think if you look at other outside forecasters, you'll see very much the same thing.
And what data are you looking for?
Well, we look at the incoming data on. We look at our own forecast and we ask ourselves what's likely to happen. You know, monetary policy has to be forward-looking. A forecast is a prediction of what's going to happen in the future.
Thank you. In its statement, the committee announced that it will continue to monitor the implications of incoming data and adjust the stand of monetary policy as appropriate. Some analysts predict 2 rate cuts by the end of the year are still on the table. Is this a fair and accurate assumption? And what incoming data will the committee need to see to consider these cuts?
So what will actually happen with rates is going to depend on the path of the economy, and that's highly uncertain. So I would just say what that means at this moment in time is that a significant majority of the committee, but also there's a pretty significant minority that doesn't agree, but a significant majority feels it will be appropriate to reduce rates later this year. And what that means is that each of those persons who wrote down a cut in rates later this year, they think that there's some state of the world where inflation doesn't prove to be as high, or the labor market weakens, or some combination of those two things, that it will turn out to be more likely than not appropriate to reduce policy rates, subject to great uncertainty. I mean, we will, the story has been evolving, and our thinking has been adapting, and that will continue.
Thank you. Chair Powell, although a ceasefire has been tentatively reached in the Middle East, the situation still has the potential to open global and energy markets, especially if the ceasefire is broken, while at this point Iran is seen as unlikely to close the Strait of Hormuz. That decision could change. How is the Fed assessing the current situation and incorporating those assessments as it considers future adjustment to economic projections and its stand on monetary policy?
So I think it's too early to know what any economic implications might be, and I would not want to speculate. Like everyone else, we are, of course, watching the situation.
Thank you. And Chair Powell, after reviewing the economic data following the meeting last week, it seems to me that the committee is indicating that we could be headed for a situation where inflation accelerates while unemployment rises and growth become more sluggish. In this scenario, this will put the Fed's dual mandate of maximum employment and price stability in tension with one another. In this scenario, how does the Fed balance these priorities in order to achieve both mandates?
So let me say that we're not facing that right now, and that isn't really our forecast that we will face such an issue in a serious way. But if that does happen, then what we do is we look at the two goals and we see which one of them is farther from its goal. Two variables, is maximum employment or price stability farther from its goal, and we prefer the one that's farther than its goal. And then we also ask ourselves, how quickly will they return to goal? It's a very difficult situation for any central bank, and I would say again, we're not in that situation right now.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yield back.
The gentleman's time has expired. The Vice Chairman of the full committee, Mr.
You will not regret it.
Recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair Hill and Chair Powell. Good to see you again.
Grapes and tangerines / cuties in the freezer. Period.
But following up a bit on what Chair Hill had been talking about, you had said in January 29, 2025, quote, "We don't know what will happen with tariffs, with immigration, with fiscal policy, and with regulatory policy." I would add energy into that, by the way. "We need to let those policies be articulated before we can even begin to make a plausible assessment of what their implications for the economy will be. This is no different than any set of policy changes at the beginning of the administration. However, December 18 of 2024 at the FOMC press conference, you noted, and I'm paraphrasing, that some Federal Reserve officials began to incorporate preliminary conditional estimates of how fiscal policies might impact the economy into their forecasts."
Yeah, because we do work ahead of time.
It seems inconsistent. And I
Republican
sidebarred
asshole
with the chair to say, okay, did I hear this correctly? His question and sort of your answer. What I heard is that there was a belief that the IRA would not be inflationary, but that tariffs could be, therefore, suddenly.
Let me just explain to you what's happening right now, in case you're not familiar with what's happening right now. The Republicans are pissed off because the economists under Jerome Powell, for lack of a better term, I'm sure they have a real name, but whatever, were assessing the impact of Trump's proposed economic policies. And don't forget that Stephen Mirren's Mar-a-Lago Accord / the document titled Upending the Global or Restructuring the Global Trade System. Stephen Mirren, the same guy who is currently the chief of the economic advisors to the president. So not just a random loser, a very specific loser. Don't forget that that document was issued in October of 2024. At the time that Stephen Mirren was being talked about as the economic advisor incoming for the Trump administration. So that's just one example of a real world thing that happened, that if I were an economist working for Jerome Powell at the Fed or whatever, I would be looking at those documents to assess what could be coming, because unlike these schlumps, serious people do their work. Okay? And so these guys are literally complaining about the fact that Jerome Powell's didn't talk about Joe Biden's the infrastructure bill that was passed in the same ways that he's talked about the uncertainty that comes with this Nazi regime that we have in place. This is what they're concerned about. Not are you going to be able to keep your job? Not are we going to have any price instability in the country? Not how housing markets will be impacted by not they're not asking about any of that. They're worried that he was mean to that they perceive that Jerome Powell is a meanie. That's what they're mad about. I mean, okay.
You and others were commenting on tariffs, and for the institution, I know you try to be consensus-driven. Why are there FOMC participants making fiscal policy assumptions into their forecasting when you yourself said that fiscal policies need to be articulated before the FOMC can make a plausible assessment into their implications?
Do you see what I'm saying? That's what they're upset about.
And I think if there's different
I'm not making this up.
having different assumptions, that would render the SEP, Summary of Economic Projections, biased, meaningless,
I know, so
useless,
good, right?
less
Neil?
impactful.
I'm telling you right now.
And when you're not comparing
Welcome to the land of frozen fruit. I was yesterday's years old when I discovered frozen fruit. Not yesterday,
to
but
make
you know what I mean.
the same fiscal policy assumptions at the same time, or if not, shouldn't each participant disclose what assumptions that they're using and building into that? So here's the question.
So that's a great question. That really, when the Summary of Economic Projections was originally designed and put into effect in this way, the way it works is that individuals are free to make whatever assumptions they want, and they do disclose them. They disclose them in their speeches and things like that. So there will be situations where some people incorporate something and others don't, and we try to be transparent about that. But that's kind of the way it works. When I say we don't take it into account, I'm really talking about policy and the committee as a whole, where we won't take things into account until we know.
And you believe that the participants disclose their assumptions when they're doing their forecasts?
Oh my God.
Well, I think they do that in their speeches.
Oh my God.
Each people go out, you may have noticed there are a lot of speeches.
Well,
and
I guess the opaqueness of the Fed has been something over the arc of my 15 years on this committee has been one that has been debated greatly, including auditing the Fed and
the impact of tariffs and so forth. And they said any other.
And so now we know a lot.
As you know, in health, that found that more than half of Black women of reproductive age, that's the term they use, in the counties that I represent, that had experienced some sort of eviction during their lifetime. So that's like 50% of Black women in the two largest county, Wayne County and Oakland County.
Literally doesn't have an opinion about.
Horrific.
Like he's very good at what he does.
Were you aware of that?
Whether
no,
or
I
not.
was not.
Yeah.
And evictions
he's not going to engage
often
in the
very
personality
experience,
shit.
but also it creates a cycle of poverty, but also this instability for many families. But especially when it comes to a lot of our Black neighbors, the access to equity, the access to housing is diminished even more.
Opaqueness,
in Michigan, we
formerly
lost more
known
Black
as
home ownership
opacity.
than any other state in the country during the last recession. So we know the housing crisis, I believe, is structural, and some may say it's a policy choice. While there are many factors at play, and you know this, Chairman, high mortgage rates, the finance rates and so forth, that drag the supply of new housing. But last month, new housing hit a 5-year low. Are you familiar with that?
I'm not sure exactly what statistic you are referring to.
Okay, I don't know. There was all this articles about the housing market and the impact of tariffs and so forth, and they said, again, it hit a 5-year low. And again, I'm getting this from a source. But this sets the market up for higher inflation and more burdensome housing costs to years to come. So Chairman Powell, I'm looking at this monetary whatever policy framework that you guys have put together. Do you think that the way it's structured, and again, I'm trying to understand how you're looking at this in the housing.
Housing starts, she's right. He just doesn't happen to know. Housing starts declined 9.8% in May 2025 to 1.256 million, marking the lowest level in 5 years. And that is from, let me get you the exact link-a-dink. What? Housing starts. This is housing starts declined. Okay, so that's what that's the piece that she's referring to. Housing starts hit a 5-year low. Oh, this is a dumb article, but that's okay. Yahoo Finance, I have that. I have a chart from them. So, all right, so it's housing starts that she's talking about. The housing supply is different. And hold on, because I went away from it for a minute. In housing, okay. While housing starts are down, other aspects of the housing market are showing. Home prices have generally increased over the past 5 years. Housing inventory has been rising. Existing home sales remain near historic lows. So that's just that's a quick hit on the housing
crisis. Do you believe it's eroding new rental supply under
There's a
construction
lot of
right now,
factors
leading
in
to high
housing,
inflation
right?
in future years?
It's very complicated.
So I think there are two things going on quickly. One is just there's a longer run shortage of housing in the United States, which there's nothing that the Fed can do about.
Yes,
It's not something we can affect.
we're
There's
going to
also,
go back to
if I
that
may
one,
say,
Helena.
in the short
So
run,
we'll see
rates
you
are high,
when you
and
come
that's going
back.
to weigh on housing activity. But the best thing we can do for the housing market, the absolute best thing, is to restore price stability so that
We haven't
rates
talked
come
about the
down,
sale of
and
public
so
lands,
that
but we're going to have to
rates
get
can
into
be at a
that.
But don't you
level
think
people
that
can
the
That's not to
restrictive
increase
monetary
housing.
policy the framework you all put together undermines long-term
That's not to
price
increase
stability
housing.
right now by
That's
reducing the supply?
That's for manufacturing and mining.
No, I mean, I think
But you're
it
reducing
restores
supply.
price stability. The point of higher rates is to, and
So
and
you don't
it
think
does
the
affect.
higher rates is impacting future supply of housing?
So I think what that does is, I think interest-sensitive sectors like housing are very much directly affected when we cut rates or when we raise rates. That's
Right.
right. But that's part of the mechanism for restoring general price stability.
So keeping the high interest rates does not impact future supply of housing?
It does not, over the long.
I need to go back to talk to
Over the long
women
run,
that the
the
study.
Fed will not be, our policy will not be a driver of longer-run housing supply in the United
So,
States.
okay, let me ask you, what is the difference? And honestly,
Yeah, that's Rashida Tlaib.
I want to learn here, and I'm sure people listening to this want to learn. What is the difference between demand-driven rent inflation and supply-driven rent inflation? Like, you guys use these terminology. What is that? How do I communicate that to the public? What is the difference between supply-driven versus demand-driven rent?
Those are not terms that we use particularly often.
What's
but
supply-driven formula?
that would mean that there's not enough supply to meet demand. But at the same time, it also means there's more demand than there is supply.
So are you guys ignoring that?
No, but as I said again, our policies will not affect in the long run.
No, I'm being
either
serious,
demand
'cause I
or
see somebody
supply
behind
in
you kind of
housing.
check. I'm being serious, y'all. We're talking about a housing crisis that is getting worse right now because we're not paying attention to future instability that the current rates, and you can raise your eyebrows and all this stuff behind. I don't know. I mean, do you understand? Like, I come from a community right now that I believe is now being impacted by the current framework that you're putting together, that I do feel like is going to be long-term effects on the housing crisis, and you're ignoring it.
No, we're not, actually. We think the
don't
very
think he's
best thing we
ignoring
can
it,
do
but I
is to
think
fully restore price
he's
stability
not
at the
answering her
aggregate level. That will be the best
overall
thing for
question.
homeowners and for home
Even though the
builders and
housing
everybody
supply
else.
has been
In the
impacted by the
long
high
run, that
interest.
is the single
But
thing
Chairman
that
Powell,
Congress
you
has
see where I'm
assigned us
coming
to
from.
do.
But you see where I'm coming from. It is impacting future supply of housing, right?
Not in the long run, no.
Okay. Well,
Gentlewoman's
Mr.
time
Chair,
has
thank you.
expired. The gentleman from Wisconsin, Mr. Stile, who's also the chair of our subcommittee on digital assets, financial technology, and artificial intelligence. You're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman Hill. Thank you, Chairman Powell, for being with us today. I want to dive into two actions the Fed's recently sector once again, but give you a little freedom
I'm
here
not going to listen
speak
to
that
as much.
area.
I had to skip
You
ahead to the
correctly are
live.
trying to balance inflation and price stability.
I mean,
but also
no one can
higher
afford.
rates
I
have a
don't know who
significant
can afford to
impact,
buy.
on the
I
housing
know
market,
Bobo
as
would love
shelter
to
and
buy a
housing
house
costs,
or something.
are a significant
There's no way
driver
she could
of
afford it.
why many families can't afford the things that they need. Can you provide color as to how you're analyzing the impact that housing and shelter costs have on families and on inflation, with your desire to maintain price stability at the interest rates that is currently set by the Fed?
Sure. So, we realize that people are feeling high housing costs and high financing costs. In terms of inflation, we look at something called owner's equivalent rent and rentals, and that's
It's too
meant to
bad because
capture
we
both
should go
rented
deeper
housing
into
and
what
owned housing. And
Congresswoman
it's been
Tlaib
very
was talking
sticky.
about,
It's
because
been
I
one
think
of
there's.
the stickiest
He didn't
parts
give
of
her an
inflation.
answer.
I'm happy to say now it actually is coming down quite regularly. That's very good news. That's been the part. Really, it's been the service inflation that's been stickier than other parts of inflation. So that's good news for people, I think, and it is showing through into measured inflation now. Again, in the long run, the best thing we can do is restore price stability and let the market work. Even then, though, we're still going to have a housing shortage.
What data do you think is leading to the reduction in the rent equivalent?
I just think it took time. So the thought is when you would think that if rents come up every year, you would think it would take 1 year or 2 years for
There are no
a
houses
lack of
at
growth
twice
in
yearly
rents to show
household
up, and
income.
a lack of growth in housing prices. It
There's
turns
no
out it takes
houses at that
4 years
price.
or 3 years. It just if you're an existing tenant, it's a complicated thought, but if you're an existing tenant, you don't actually catch up the way you would if new tenants came in. And so that's made the measurement of inflation stickier. But I'm happy to say we've been through that period now, and we are really seeing now housing services inflation pretty close to where it was when inflation was solidly at 2%.
Thank you. I yield back.
Gentleman yields back. Gentleman from California, Mr. Liccardo, is recognized for 5 minutes.
Yes, please take a look at the
Chair.
link that Gal
thank you
dropped. I
for
can't play Jimmy
your
Kimmel because he'll
testimony today.
strike my show and take my stream down. But do
Appreciate
watch that.
Your
I
dual
bet it's funny.
mandate is full employment and price stability, and I appreciate your efforts on behalf of our country to achieve those. My understanding is that critical data is collected by the Bureau of Labor Statistics to help.
I just think he's not answering it very well,
formulate
but I get
the
it. And it
indicators
is
that you
complicated.
rely on, that we
He should be
rely
more
on to
helpful to her to get her
unemployment rates,
question,
CPI, and other
clarified.
inflation indicators. We
Boo,
are
Jerry Powell.
certainly hearing a lot about the impacts of DOGE on our workforce, and specifically about the elimination of many of those positions in BLS. And now we have a proposal in front of Congress.
No, it's bad out here.
$56 million
Tom.
from that agency. Are you
Depressing.
concerned about the ability of your team to get accurate data and about the ability to have reliable indicators to make good decisions?
Yeah, but
I
no
wouldn't
one.
say that I'm concerned about
Bobo
the
can't
data
work from there.
today, although clearly there has been
We would
very
love to
mild
move somewhere
degradation
rural,
of the scope
but she
of
can't
the-
work
of
from
the
there.
surveys and things like that. But I would say the direction of travel is something I'm concerned about, and that is measuring the U.S. economy carefully and well is a project that's been going on, and we're getting better at it for 100 years and more. And it's really important, not just for the Fed, but for Congress and for businesses, frankly, to know what really is going on in the economy. What's happening? Is growth high? Is it low? And all those sorts of things. So I think it's a smart investment to just continually try to get better at measurement of what's happening in the economy. And I don't like to see that, the kind of stories I'm reading and the idea being that the data is going to become more volatile and less reliable. That's not going to, that'll make
I
it more
know.
difficult
We're
for
looking for
the
that
private
robot.
sector and
Where
for
is that
you and for
robot?
us, and I don't like to see that direction.
I agree. Thank you. I appreciate that it's not your role to comment on the advisability of specific policies, but given your critical role in ensuring price stability and reducing inflation, I have had conversations with, quite recently, just a week ago, with a C-suite executive of a major world global retailer who informed me, because I asked, why aren't we seeing the impact of these tariffs and price data yet? And he said, it's coming in the third quarter, because it takes time for tariffs to work their way through a distribution chain. Often what you have on the shelf today may have been imported 2 or 3 months ago. Is that your understanding? Do you anticipate there may be impacts down the road?
Yeah, that's very much what I hear. It happened to
That's
me
so
with an unusually
cute,
large
meowing
number
star.
of business people in this last FOMC cycle, and that's a typical thing that they'll say, especially the retailers, that what's being sold now was in inventory in February, let's say, and it just isn't showing up yet. So we do expect to show up, tariff inflation to show up more, but I want to be honest, we really don't know how much of that's going to be passed through to the consumers. We just don't know, and we won't know until we see it. It could be lower than we expect.
It's true. He has to say things like
wait and
that.
see, which is
He doesn't
kind of
know.
what we're doing.
I appreciate the uncertainty.
I appreciate that
Another
he's
thing you
not going to
told me
be like
had
hyperbolic.
me very concerned was
I
that,
need Jerome Powell not
often
to be hyperbolic.
They will increase prices on goods not subjected to tariffs to compensate for the very substantial
No, I think Maloney
losses
is a
that they
fucking
have to
fascist,
suffer,
and I think she plays
with
her
increasing
hand
tariffs on
very
relatively
carefully.
price
That's what I think.
Price elastic goods. So in other words, necessities will also
Yeah. Well,
tend to
luckily
bear
for
a
us,
higher
we have an
price, even if they're not
in-house tariff
subjected to
expert.
tariffs. Is that your understanding of the potential impacts?
You know, that very much is something that companies will tell you that they do. If they can't cover the losses on the thing that's being tariffed, they'll find other ways to do it. We actually don't have prominent examples of that yet, but that's certainly a possibility. And that did happen in the last tariff episode with washing machines and dryers.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And finally, you know, there's indications in the introduction of the report that the Fed is losing its ability as we see interest rates getting closer and closer to the minimum threshold, the ability to stimulate this economy in times of recession. We haven't had a recession, or at least we haven't had an extended recession in a decade and a half. I am particularly concerned now as we are looking at debt that is being considered to be imposed on future generations by this particular bill. Could there be a combination of very high debt and very little room to move in monetary policy that could undermine our ability to respond to the next recession?
So we faced that issue quite a bit in the era of very low interest rates, but you know we're at higher levels of interest rates now, so there's significantly more room to cut than there was then.
Thank you.
Gentleman yields back. Gentleman from Wisconsin, Mr. Fitzgerald, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chairman. Chairman Powell, thanks for being here today. Appreciate it. I want to go back to something we had some brief discussions about this in the past, but in September of 2024, with core inflation still being above target and the labor market was holding steady at the time, the Fed made a decision to cut rates by a full half percentage point.
Eat the tariffs.
It kind of raised some serious questions as to whether or not the data truly supported such a move at that time, and I think some of us were surprised that it was a full 0.5%.
Well, maybe that's why you don't work at the Fed.
Can you revisit that again, what the Fed was thinking at that time?
Why?
Because it seems to be somewhat of an enigma now. It stands out as, you know, why was this done? Why was the 0.5%
Well, I guess you
done
don't work for the
at that
Fed.
point?
That's why you don't understand why it worked and happened.
First of all, actually the inflation and employment readings were very similar then to what they are now. They weren't terribly different, a tenth or two.
Right.
But the difference then was you mentioned that the labor market was stable. It wasn't. The unemployment rate had actually gone up almost a full percentage point. I was very clear about this. We were very clear about it in real time too. The concern at that time was that there really hasn't been an experience, or hadn't been an experience in the modern era, in which the unemployment rate has gone up close to 1%. That hasn't been followed by much higher levels of unemployment and a recession. So we were looking at that and saying, and remember, at that point,
using precedent,
the federal funds rate was 5.3%, so definitely very restrictive level. We were the last of the big central banks to cut. So we wanted to make a statement that we were supportive of the labor market and not just inflation. We've been focusing on inflation. I was quite clear about this. So it was all about the labor market.
So if you don't understand
Inflation
it, that's
was
not
the
a me
same,
problem.
and, unemployment was roughly the same, but it was the rate of change with the unemployment rate that raised a lot of concerns. And remember, we were being criticized for being late to cut. So we could have done 25, if we'd done 25
I hope he
in
said
July,
that,
we were
Jane.
criticized for not cutting in July. Instead, we cut 50 in September, and it seemed like the right thing to do. You know, and at the end of the day, we do what we think is the right thing when we think it's the right thing to do. We don't take into consideration political factors. If we start doing that, I don't know where that stops. Once you start considering elections and stuff like that, where does it stop? You know, so
and I didn't want to insinuate that it had anything to do with the election itself, but there just seems to be some very similar numbers right now.
Oh, and
I'm
they look
wondering,
the same.
and I don't bring this
You
up
don't
because I
understand.
want to kind of make a point about
How does
did
money
the Fed
work?
do the right
I
thing or
don't
not.
know.
Yeah, I bring it up because it seems like everything's in place right now to
Yeah,
kind
why?
of do the same thing.
Why
make
can't
the
you
same
cut
move.
rates? Why?
I know you've, this morning
Why?
already, you've talked a little bit about where you were
Why
on
can't you cut rates?
inflation right now and kind of what you're
Why
watching.
not?
But is there
Why
any
not?
lesson there?
That's
I mean,
my
are we in a
opinion, Jane.
position
I don't know
where-
about Maloney,
where
but
it would
that's
be
just my
appropriate to do
opinion.
something as big
I
as
hope I'm wrong.
0.5% cut again?
Well, look, as I
Look,
said
you
earlier,
don't understand
if
economic
not for-
policy.
if you
I
just
run
look at
economic
the
policy.
basic data
The
and
end.
don't look at the forecast, you would say that we would have continued cutting. The difference, of course, is
Yeah, right, Jane? It is a
at
bit of a
this time,
drawback.
all forecasters are expecting pretty soon that some significant inflation will
He doesn't
show up
decide on your
from tariffs.
feelings.
Now, and we can't just ignore
Teresa.
that. But we're just saying let's wait and see more. That's all we're doing. And if you will have noticed, a substantial majority of the
Tom.
committee has written down rate cuts in the remaining 4 years, four meetings this year. So it's just a question of being prudent and careful. But at a time when the labor market is still strong, we don't see weakness
Oh, is
in
that
the
a
labor
Crocus
market.
song?
If we
Oh.
did, that would change things. We're going to continue to adapt as the data adapt. But that is the difference between then and now. Then, inflation was forecasted to continue to come down. Here, it's forecasted to go up by all forecasters. So, and again, we're not overreacting to that. We're just saying, hey, as long as the economy's strong, we can take a little bit of a pause here. And that's
Yep.
what we're doing. And again,
Carla.
continue to adapt
Agree.
as the data comes in. If we see data that suggests that inflation's not going to produce big increases, that would matter. And if we saw the labor market weakening, that would matter too. But we don't see those things.
What about supply chain? In 2020, that was a big issue, obviously related to COVID. But
Oh
I
my
know
God.
myself and other members, when we're in our districts and we're specifically talking to light manufacturing, there's concerns about the supply chain. Is that
Okay.
part of the data package that you review when you make a decision about where we're headed in the future?
Very
Hell
much
yeah,
so.
Lee.
I think that's one of the great, well, we won't call it a great thing, but
Gentleman's
one of the
time has
lessons to
expired.
be taken from the last episode is supply chains really matter. We're watching that carefully. It's too soon to say really on that. We're not seeing it yet.
You know
but
what the thing I do appreciate
Gentleman's
about
time has
him?
expired.
I will say the thing I appreciate about Jerome Powell is that you just get his in the moment, like he's talking to you about present day. And he definitely does. And if you read the Fed reports, which we do on this show, if you read the Fed reports that come from the different Feds across the country and the forecast and things like that, they're being honest about what they see coming and being reasonable about it. And what his job is to talk about current day and what is happening and what is in their purview as they look forward and what is not in their purview. And that's what I need him to be this way. I know he's still just a motherfucking capitalist. I get it. But one thing I like about Jerome Powell is he is like standard operating procedure. It's like going to Applebee's. You know what the food is you're going to get. It's not the best food, but you know what you're going to get. And that's what I like. I need this right now. I need someone in government who is actually trying to do their job with factual information and do the best job that they can to meet their mission. And so I totally appreciate that he is a capitalist pig, 100% right behind you. On the same hand, I also believe that it is beneficial to us in this moment to have one adult who has some level of power over our day-to-day lives. And if it's going to happen, at least it's someone like him who's just like, this is what I see, this is what we do, this is why I do it, this is the information we do it based on. You know what I mean? Like, I just feel like, anyway, that's just my thing. Where everyone is an unqualified clown, I guess he's like a better clown. He's like a better clown. Anyway, you've never been to an Applebee's? Well, I'm sorry. I haven't been to one since they got rid of their like homemade potato chips because frankly, that was the best thing about Applebee's was their homemade potato chips. But now they don't have them anymore, so go fuck themselves.
Thank you, Chairman. Yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Fitzgerald. The gentleman from New Jersey, Mr. Gottheimer, you're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Powell, as a member of the Intelligence Committee, I'm deeply concerned about the threat of Iranian cyber attacks on our financial system as retaliation for our strikes on their nuclear facilities. In its cybersecurity report last year, the Fed acknowledged that critical infrastructure, including financial services, is at risk with rising geopolitical tensions. Iran has a history of targeting American infrastructure companies and financial institutions and banks, which could obviously threaten and cause economic damage. What actions is the Fed taking now to monitor and defend against Iranian or proxy cyber threats targeting our country's financial institutions?
When I go to, Erewhon to get my smoothie, I know what I'm going to get. Okay, what do you want?
That work on cyber, as you know, and we're in touch with the banks to say, for people to be on the alert for things like that to happen, and also we're on the alert because we're a target.
I like Carney so
right
far.
To raise it, it's a,
He's also probably a capitalist pig,
I feel like you
but
have
I
the
like him.
resources right now to be prepared for that.
Yes, I mean,
It's kind of easy to be liked right now if you're not a complete, total fucking
we spend
asshole.
a lot, and,
Yeah,
and
but
the government
Biden.
generally spends a lot on these things, and but you can never ever be comfortable in this area because the bad guys are always getting better. So we
I
need
want him
keep
to talk about wealth fund and what his thoughts are. He won't
Switching
share them,
gears,
but I really want him to
President and
talk
members of
about
his
that.
administration have recently called you out, various name calling for certain decisions you've made. I know that some people worry that the president's bullying will impact your decision making. I know you work together, and I know that and respect obviously your independence.
Well, I'll talk
greatly.
to my crypto
Anything you wanna
boys
add
because
and give
apparently
you a chance to reiterate
I run
your
a
independence to
crypto
the American
cult.
people.
Yeah,
I don't, by the
would
way.
just say we're focused on one thing, and that is we want to deliver a good economy for the benefit of the American people. That's it. And anything else is kind of a distraction. I don't mean to refer to any particular thing, but we stay focused on that task all the time. We always do what we think is the right thing to do. And, we live with the consequences. And I don't know how else to do the job.
Right, so the name calling and the Mr. Too Late and all that stuff, the American people shouldn't worry about that. You're focused on being independent.
That's what I care about. I care about doing the job for the American people. The things we do matter a lot for people's lives, and that really concentrates the mind.
I don't turn down a good steak, but I get you.
Stay focused on that task. As long as you're sitting in these chairs that we occupy, focus on that task, do what you think is the right thing, and take the consequences.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. You've previously stated that you view stablecoins as a form of money. Payment stablecoins are already being used for both retail and wholesale payments, as well as for settlement. Recently, this committee passed the Stablecoin Act and the Senate passed the Genius Act, both aiming to establish clear regulatory frameworks for fully reserved dollar-backed payment stablecoins. Given their design to maintain a stable value and be redeemable for U.S. dollars, should the SEC or other regulators explore treating these stablecoins as cash equivalents for accounting or financial reporting purposes?
So let me say, I think it's a great thing that bills are moving. We need a stablecoin framework on that particular issue. I don't have a view for you. I can come back to you on that.
Oh, yeah, sure you don't.
Thank you. High rates have also caused, as we've discussed,
it's just
the
lard,
cost of
okay?
paying off
It's
our
not
nation's
lard
debt
coin.
to
Get a grip.
skyrocket. The CBO estimates that interest
Dollar
payments will
lard.
cost the U.S. $1 trillion in
Diamond
fiscal
hands
year
on dollar lard
2026
all
and continue to
day.
rise
Whoop,
to almost $1.8 trillion by FY 2035. How do you see us continuing to be able to afford to pay off our debt at this rate? And as the U.S. continues to borrow, how does that impact your decision?
Of course my
to
coin
keep
would be
or cut
lard.
rates?
Of course
Obviously,
it
foreign
would.
countries like Japan, who are significant buyers of our bonds, have started decreasing
I don't
their
get a
purchases
sexy name.
significantly. Other internal pressures
get lard.
worldwide are having that impact. Are you worried about this
slard.
global issue?
Slard. That's easier to say, actually.
And it really is not our job, and it's not something we take into consideration in making monetary policy. That's really elected people's jobs. And I would add that
Somebody rip me off.
for some time now, the U.S. federal fiscal policy has been on an unsustainable path, and I'll limit myself to that.
Last question. Last week, you chose to keep rates steady, and families in our state, as you'll hear from a lot of people today, are really struggling with the higher cost of borrowing and putting off bigger purchases on things like cars and homes.
You're
As a
really
result,
talking about
their wallets being crushed
Trump, but
by
okay.
these price hikes and obviously the president's tariffs.
Slard.
What do you have to say to Jersey families who are struggling with higher costs, and how you look at how they should
Holy
forecast themselves
slard.
for their own families?
We're committed to returning inflation sustainably to 2% and keeping it there in the long run. And what we're doing now is we had cut rates by 100 basis points, so they've come down quite a bit. And
Neil's like, I do have actual
time
lard,
is
though.
right. I expect
Well,
that will
it's far
continue.
more useful than
And
slard.
That will depend on
Neil.
On economic factors, in the
What
coming
do I have
months.
to say
for
about that?
starters.
Thank you. I yield back. Thank you, sir.
Gentleman yields back. Gentleman from Nebraska, the chair of our Housing and Insurance Subcommittee, Mr. Flood, you're recognized 4 or 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Powell, later this week, the banking agencies will be proposing changes to the supplementary leverage ratio, which we think are
I was
long
gonna
overdue.
ask her about Hayden
considering
Davis
the
last
Fed in
night, but I
2021
didn't. I
indicated that they
forgot.
would soon put out proposals for reform to the
Yeah,
SLR
it's
and never
it's
actually
pegged.
did.
My coin is pegged
However,
to
our
lard. No,
understanding
it's
is
not.
that the
I'm just
proposal
kidding.
being
I don't have a
considered this
coin,
week
and it's not
will
pegged
not
to anything.
allow for treasuries to be excluded from the SLR calculation. Secretary Bessent earlier this year had argued that such a change could serve as a boost for banks
was awful.
and their ability to intermediate in
make
the
a
treasury
pie
market and
crust
could
with
potentially
slard.
pull
was
treasury
crunchy.
yields down 30 to 70 basis points. Chairman Powell, do you agree with the Treasury Secretary's comments on the potential
I don't know. I
positive
have to check
impact
in
of
on him
SLR
again.
reform
I
on the
looked at
Treasury
him a few
market,
weeks ago, but
and
then
what is the
nothing had come
rationale
up, so
for
I got to
not
find some more
excluding treasuries
recent
from the
stuff on
SLR
him.
calculation in the proposed rule?
So I agree that when the leverage ratio is binding, it discourages banks from
Hate it when my
undertaking
leverage ratio is
low-margin,
binding.
fairly safe
Really hurts.
activities such as mediation in the Treasury markets. So this should encourage more mediation. I don't have a numerical estimate of how much that would matter, but I do think it would matter. I think it was important. I've supported leverage ratio reform for a very long time, since before 2021.
Chairman.
In terms of the structure of the thing, I think we're seeking comment on a particular proposal that doesn't involve exclusion.
No,
but,
Tom,
but
I don't
we're also
remember
asking
that.
a question about exclusion.
What's that
Mr. Chairman,
episode?
considering the Fed temporarily excluded treasuries from the SLR calculation during the
That
COVID
is not a
pandemic,
good color
were
for
you
him.
aware of any safety and soundness or
Okay.
financial stability problems that arose as a result of that decision? And if not, why was that relief terminated in 2021?
Why are you talking
That
about
was an
shit that
emergency
happened so
measure.
long ago?
From the beginning and end, it was an emergency measure. I think, my long-held view is that we should have a permanent measure, and now we're going to. And we have an open board meeting on Wednesday afternoon, and after I finish my hearing on the Senate
No,
side.
the
and I'm
Bitcoin
very
I
much
was
looking forward to
offered-
putting this proposal out for comment.
Thank you.
There was
In
a
March,
lard
the Federal
coin. There's a
Reserve, together
Lolo
with the
coin.
FDIC and
I don't
the
think they're
OCC
Bitcoin.
announced
I
that
think
they
they're
intend to issue a
meme
notice
coins.
of proposed
They're
rulemaking
not
to
real.
repeal the 2023
Don't buy
Community
them.
Reinvestment Act and replace it with the legacy
Oh, the
CRA
movie.
framework.
Okay.
Nearly
Oh,
3
I don't
months have
remember that
passed since
one.
this announcement. What is the status of this project?
Alice, no.
Well, we're going to do
Now
what
that-
we said we were
yeah,
going
that
to do.
tan
It's just
suit is a
question of
problem.
execution, and I think you'll see that coming. This would be so. Vice Chair Bowman has the job of sequencing these things, and that one's certainly coming.
Do you intend to issue a proposal that will be a clean rescission and replacement of that rulemaking, or are you considering amendments to the legacy rule?
Some guy sent me $50
honestly
on
don't know.
PayPal
We'll
for
come
the
back to you on
coin.
So we should know
And
more
I'm
later
like,
this week.
I don't know what you're talking about. And then I spent the money on
Finally,
weed.
I'd like to build off of what Congressman Stile asked previously
that
on the
right?
Supervision of Novel Activities Program. Do you feel any changes could be
He
made
tried to
it
get me to
encourage
buy or
innovation,
to
and do you
endorse the
anticipate any
coin.
such changes to the program?
And he's like, I sent her
do, and I
$50
also
so
think,
that she would endorse the
Governor
coin.
Bowman-
I don't know what
Governor
that
Bowman, now
means.
Vice Chair
I
Bowman
didn't think it was a
is-
contract.
Is someone who is actually
So
deeply
I just went ahead
knowledgeable
and
experienced
bought weed
in
with it.
supervision, and that hasn't really been the model. We've more had people
That's
who
what
are
I
experts
did.
on regulation. I think she brings a particular ability to move supervision in
Yeah,
a
exactly.
healthy direction while also
Yep.
preserving safety and soundness. And that's what you mentioned is one of the dimensions in which I think that will be true.
Thank you for your testimony today. I appreciate your service to the country, and with that, I yield back, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, whoever you are.
Gentleman yields back. The chair recognizes the ranking member of our full committee, Mrs. Waters, for 5 minutes.
It didn't come with a contract.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Chair Powell?
It's
I
$50 in
appreciate
my
that
PayPal.
despite
I know.
the repeated attacks
I'm
by
loving the
President
jacket
and his
choice.
cabinet on you personally.
Not everyone can pull
that
off
you stood
neon.
your ground and you did not bow
But of course,
to
beautiful
pressure
Ms.
from
Waters
Trump,
can.
especially given the current state of economic uncertainty due to his policies. Last week, the Fed held interest rates steady. Afterwards, you said that you and other
468 people
experts
own
continue
slard.
to expect a meaningful amount of inflation due to tariffs Trump's tariffs.
Yes,
He
Grace
said that
Lisa.
it may take
Weed coin
some
good at
time
dispensaries.
for the tariffs to work their way through the supply chain, but that you found.
Well, I mean, I just
and I
gave him credit
quote,
for it, so
many
there you go.
companies do expect to put some or all
Hey man,
of
it's
the
his
effect
money. I don't
of
give a
tariffs
shit.
through to
I
the
didn't
next
ask for it.
person in the
I
chain.
don't even know who he
and
is.
ultimately to the consumer, quote, end quote. So while the president may try to claim other countries pay these tariffs, can you confirm that it is indeed consumers and businesses in the United States that will bear these costs?
I mean, again, it
It
takes
can be anybody
fucking
from the
style to pull
exporter,
that shit off.
the importer, the retailer, the manufacturer, or the consumer that winds up paying these tariffs. In the beginning, it will be the importer that pays the tariff, but ultimately it will be spread out among those five, each of which will try very hard not to contribute, but in the end, the tariff will be paid. And you know, all of the data suggests that at least some of that will fall, not all of it, but at least some of it will fall on consumers.
Well, you indicated it may take some time for tariffs to work their way through the supply chain. Would you elaborate on this, including when is it that we can see negative impacts to inflation from Trump's tariff policy?
So, you know, the things that are being
the
sold at
consumer
retail
price
now that
index
might
was
have
up
been put
0.1%
into
in May,
inventory
so
before the tariffs in February or March. So we think we should start to see this over the summer, you know, in the June numbers and in the July numbers. And if we don't, I think we're learning here. If we see less pass-through, there aren't historical experiences we can consult here, really. So it may turn out that the pass-through is less or more than we think.
Yeah,
and I think we're going to be
exactly.
learning, you know, we'll get
by promoting the coin, I shit on it.
You know, an inflation number for June.
Isn't
We'll
that
learn
promoting
something
it?
then. We'll
That's
get
what I
for
thought it
July as we
was.
go through the summer.
Oh, well.
We should start seeing this, and if we don't,
told people
think
not to
we're,
buy
you
it.
know, we're perfectly
I thought that was
open to
enough.
the idea that the pass-through will be less than we think, and if so, that'll matter for our policy.
Well, you know, I've been talking with
And we
a lot
laugh.
of my constituents about these tariffs. And the question that comes up is, now, is this going to only hurt maybe the big businesses? What about our small business people? What about the people that we buy goods and services from every day in our communities? Is this going to hurt big business as well as small business?
Yes, I mean, I don't think it's, I think it will certainly, if you're a smaller company that maybe imports a single product, that's a common business model these days, then you may, if your product is tariffed, you may be the one that's affected significantly, whereas bigger companies have more resources and a more diverse product line.
I'm watching
Why do you
unemployment
think you can
too.
resist
I want to
the
see how
president,
unemployment is
basically
impacted.
telling you what to do? What gives you that authority?
I don't think about it that way at all. I think I have a job that I'm sworn to do, and all I think of is how much people rely on us to get it right. You know, it really matters that we get it right, and that concentrates one's mind, and so that's what we think about at the Fed. We think about what's the right thing. You know, I have, all I want to do in what's left of my time at the Fed is have the economy be strong and have inflation be under control, have a solid labor market. I want to turn it over to my successor.
Oh, I think he
in
looked
that
gorgeous
condition.
in that
Of course,
suit.
that's what keeps me up at night, is to do that.
Yeah.
And
Well, Obama
that's what I
really
think about. That's the only
knew
thing
how
I
to
think
wear a
about.
suit.
So how are you protected? By law, by constitution? Where does your authority come from?
I think, you know, I've covered all that. I do think we're fully protected, and again, I don't think about that anymore. What I think about
agree,
is let's
Carla.
just do our jobs, and that's what we do. You know, we don't talk about those issues at all, and all we do is do our jobs as best we can. And you know, it's not an easy job, but it's one
There you
we've
go.
willingly taken on, and very important that we remain focused just on the job and not on other things.
Thank you very much. I yield back.
The gentlewoman yields back. The chair recognizes the gentleman from New York, our vice chair for communications, Mr. Lawler. You're recognized for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chairman Powell, as recently as yesterday, Fed Governor Bowman indicated that if inflation pressures remain contained, the Fed should consider lowering rates, and said
Well,
she is open to a rate cut.
That's why he's not the chair of the Fed.
Governor Waller said very much the
Aaron's
same.
done home to sit by the pool and
Do
wait
you
for AC
believe
repairs.
that we are in a position where
Sorry about
we
the
may be able
repairs
to cut
needed.
rates in July?
So I would say this. I think
I would say you're an
if
idiot.
it turns out that inflation pressures do remain contained, then we will get to a place where we cut rates sooner rather than later. But I wouldn't want to point to a
Yeah, that's
particular
not how it
meeting.
works.
I don't think we need to be in any
Idiot.
rush because the economy is still strong. The labor market is strong. If we were to see the labor market, meaningfully weaken in a way that was concerning, that would matter for that decision. But if we see inflation, continuing not to move up, we hadn't expected inflation to move up much. We do expect it to move in the summer, and if we see it not happening, we'll learn from that.
The September 2018 Teal book suggested that the Fed, seeing through tariffs' inflationary effects, is an appropriate response so long as inflation expectations are firmly anchored and that the pass-through costs are relatively short-lived. Would you agree that this assessment from the Teal book still applies to today?
I would. Those are the exact factors that we cite when we talk about this situation, plus the size of the tariffs.
Right. So let's assess the current economic situation. The
Oh my
Monetary
God.
Policy Report states that longer-run inflation expectations, quote, continue to be broadly consistent with 2% inflation, unquote. And a Harvard study argued that despite the relatively quick price responses to tariff announcements, the overall magnitude of these changes remains modest. So if these conditions hold, is it not unreasonable to think that underlying inflation trends should continue its path towards
Yeah,
2%?
blah, 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 blah.
That's certainly a very defensible position. I think what people, others on the committee think, and what I think is that this is a question we need to be careful with because it's different than it was in 2018. The difference is that we haven't had 2% inflation. In 2018, we hadn't had an inflation as high as 2% for a decade anymore.
Right.
This is a different situation.
Yeah.
We haven't fully restored price stability.
Right.
And another shock, we have to be careful. If there's a meaningfully large and sustained inflation shock, we have to be careful about that. And so, I think we're just trying to be careful and cautious, and we really think that's the best thing we can do for the people that we serve.
Exactly.
If that happens, we need to be there for it.
Right.
And so, we're in a difficult
You
situation.
don't want a reactionary knee-jerk
deciding exactly when to move.
Fed.
But again, if we continue to see inflation come in, and not prove up at the higher levels than we expect, then that would matter for our decision making.
Chairman
Blah,
Powell,
blah,
economist
blah,
John
blah,
Taylor
blah.
once noted that the Federal
No,
Reserve
he's
should
not.
deviate from its own
Blah,
Taylor
blah,
rule
blah.
in the event of an oil shock, similar to the
That's very
tariff
good.
scenario. A one-time price
Oh,
increase
very
from an
good.
oil shock should not be accompanied with an increase in interest rates. Do you agree with that assessment?
I generally do,
He
yes.
is.
Previously, you
Carla is
said
very
that
funny.
if you wait for inflation to get back down to 2% to cut rates, you are already too late. You also said
Oh,
in
come
November
on.
2024 that inflation was on a sustainable path to 2%.
Yeah, but not
Given
now.
that the
Not
FOMC
now, bitch.
believes that interest rates
It's from
now
Arrested.
are
Oh, that's right.
moderately
It's Arrested
restrictive,
Development. Blah, blah,
and that
blah.
an oil or tariff shock may not impact underlying inflation
good.
in a significant or meaningful way because, as the Monetary Policy Report established, inflation expectations are firmly anchored. What is the reason not to cut rates?
Well, it's uncertainty
as I
about
said
the size
over
and
and over and
potential
over again this
persistence
morning.
of the potential but highly uncertain.
You want me to
inflation from
do you want me to
tariffs.
point out
By the
again
way,
how your boss is really
We
stupid?
have 5
Okay.
Taylor rules in the Monetary Policy Report. 4 of them say that the policy rate is in the right range, and the other one calls for a hike.
Right.
Just for the
Yeah.
record.
Well,
So there.
back
How do
in
you
the
feel about
beginning of
that?
the Biden administration, okay,
What?
when we talk about inflation, they increased
Is he still
federal
president?
spending by $2.5 trillion each
They
year.
what?
$5 trillion in
Girl.
new spending. That's what
Girl.
gave us inflation by
Girl.
printing all of this new money and borrowing, and yet you did not
Oh my
respond
God.
to that by
Goodbye.
raising rates. In
Oh, we went ahead in the
know the
future.
answer to this question. The cost, the expenses. Our business community is suffering. And I want to know what you think of our tariff policy. What do I tell my people? What do we tell the American people? And you're a good man. I want to know the answer to this question. I want to know how you feel. This whole tariff question, it's a tax increase. It's running people out of business. What do you think about that? Give me some sort of answer.
Do we have data
Do
on
you
business
think
failings?
anything about our tariff policy? Don't you feel you have a responsibility here? Are you afraid of President Donald Trump? Why don't you deal with this? Because our economy are suffering in a mighty bad way. And I've got to represent my constituency. And they are, let's take Georgia's agricultural sector, mostly pecans and poultry and cotton exports. They've been hit hard by retaliatory tariffs from key trading partners like China. Why are you running away from the tariff fight? Give us some understanding of that.
Honestly, this is just not our role. We are not a an institution that comments on or analyzes decisions that the president makes, or the things that he runs for office on and is elected on and then does. We don't. That's just completely out of our lane. It's really inappropriate for me to have any comment on that. I'm sorry to say, Mr. Scott.
We're having these regional disruptions. Our economy is in a bad way. And I want to see you and the president this. We got pecans in Georgia. We got peanuts. We run the biggest group. We got the fastest growing trade mechanism in the Savannah Port Authority. We're crushed in Georgia. My business folks are coming to me on it. I got to get some answers from you. What do I tell them that the Fed chairman feels about their experience in this tariff? I think we need to get you and the president together.
Gentleman's time has expired. Appreciate the gentleman from Georgia. Gentlewoman from Florida, Ms. Salazar, is recognized for 5 minutes.
Here's the Bank of America report on small business outlook, just to get it from a banker perspective, which I think is helpful sometimes.
Miami, which is one of the cities most composed of Hispanic Americans and people that adore living the American dream.
Oh,
So,
I can't stand this woman.
Putting that into context, I wanted to
I
ask you a
might
few
not
questions
have
about
to be.
that we're losing.
Okay, so I think I'm going to go back to the other hearing now that we've heard this. Yeah, unfortunately, Powell can't get involved in like policy feedback. I think he's actually done quite a lot to make his opinion known. Oh, did he leave? Where he went. He doesn't like this new chair because it doesn't have enough of a, you remember the other one had a really high back. He used to love that. Sorry. But I did get him a different little perch, so he should be happy. But anyway, I wonder if we want to go back to, hold on, let me just get over here. Where was it? There's a committee, well, there is a committee on small business actually doing stuff. And there's also the NATO. There is actually while we're doing this, I kind of want to. Oh, I have it there. Oh, the health. That's right. We had RFK Jr. Hold on. Okay, so let's see. That's 5 minutes. NATO Secretary General addresses. Oh, we have some route. But here, hold on. I want to. This is only 7 minutes, but it gives you a flavor of what happened at the NATO thing this morning. Or last night or whenever it is, but I don't know. But anyway, what am I doing? Okay, this is what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what I'm doing here. I don't know what I'm doing. Here you go. Here's your favorite, Jane. I don't know where you are. Here we go.
Secretary General?
Yes.
Nixon, Secretary General, present.
Okay, thanks so
Here's
much.
Ursula von der Leyen.
So, good
Oh.
afternoon. It is so good to have this opportunity, Volodymyr, to sit down with the EU leadership and NATO to discuss with you. Again, what we are seeing at this moment is that European and Canadian partners, they are now basically ramping up the support for Ukraine. Already over 35 billion euros pledged this year. That's even before we reach half year on the 1st of July. And last year it was for the full year, a little bit over 50 billion. So we can safely assume that the total amount for 2025 will be higher than in 2024. And this shows you that the support for Ukraine is ongoing. Tomorrow we will have a summit with NATO leaders, and I can also safely predict that the support for Ukraine going forward, closely linked to the defense spending of NATO countries, will be there, and will also make sure that, of course, we hope the war will end soon, but if it takes more time, that you have the support in terms of military capabilities, but also when the peace comes or a long-term ceasefire, that you are so strong that Vladimir Putin will never, ever again try to capture 1 square mile / kilometer of Ukraine. And what we will today is coordinate closely between the EU and NATO to make sure that when it comes to all the practical support, we do the max. So again, thank you for being here, and to the colleagues from the European Commission, the European Council, really an honor to host you all here in this building. Thank you.
Thank you very much, dear Mark. Again, thank you for your invitation, your leadership, and personal involvement. Thank you very much, dear Ursula, dear Antonio. So, such a great opportunity to be in NATO Summit in Netherlands. And for us, what is the most important, that the unity of NATO countries and all Europe and European Union, and you see this unity around Ukraine. I think this is the most important things. After this, it opens the way to strengthen Ukraine, to give us strong support, to help our people and families who are abroad to live, and to help to our Ukrainians who are in Ukraine to survive. And I'm thankful for your big union and big unity. Thanks for air defense, additional military packages, and thank you that you stay with us. Not just stay strong. Thank you.
Oh, baby, he's 6'4".
Thank you, Mark, for gathering us here today, Ursula and I, with Volodymyr. Russian invasion of Ukraine remains a major threat for global peace in the world, because this invasion is undermining the international rules-based order, because Russia is an intercontinental country threatening Europe, but also the Pacific region, and because Russia is acting in alliance with countries like North Korea or Iran. Secondly, a just and lasting peace in Ukraine is urgent. And I'm deeply disappointed that Russia is not engaging with the efforts for President Trump to achieve a just and lasting peace. While President Zelensky have already agreed on unconditional ceasefire, Russia not only doesn't agree, but even are increasing the intensity of their aggression to Ukraine. From our part, we will continue to give full support to Ukraine and to continue to put pressure on Russia through sanctions. And the 18th package of sanctions is underway. Finally, we are looking forward for our common future as Ukraine entire member of the European Union. I'm very happy with the recent assessment of the European Commission about your impressive work to deliver on reforms in such difficult situations. And for sure, we are reached the conditions to move forward the ongoing negotiation process
There you go,
to
Jane.
accession to the European Union.
Go, girl.
Thank you.
So I can add, my dear friend
Ursula.
Volodymyr, you're here among friends. And we stand by
She is so fucking
Ukraine from the
hot.
very first day on, and you can count on us also for the future. We have just discussed how important it is for Ukraine to invest in the extraordinary, agile and innovative Ukrainian defense industry. Therefore, we have designed a funding program of 150 billion euros, we call it SAFE, where member states, but also Ukraine and other partners, can take these loans to invest in the Ukraine defense industry, which has shown its ability to innovate.
I think
to
Neil's
produce
just trying to make us
fast
mad,
and
Jane.
reliably, at scale. We can learn a lot from you, what that is concerned, but in this way we can support you also for the survival of Ukraine. Secondly, of course, there's constant financial support to Ukraine because we know you're fighting a war that is also protecting our values and our principles. And thirdly, indeed, we have
She's
to
like
put
a
pressure
broad, you
on
know,
President
like she's
Putin
got
that he comes to
class.
the negotiation table,
But you could
and
like
that he's
you
engaging
could like.
seriously.
I bet she
in
swears like a
negotiations for
sailor.
a just and lasting peace. Therefore, the 18th sanctions package is a biting one, is a hard
I just want to
one.
be your best friend. I want to be your best
I know
friend.
that our G7 friends will follow suit with their sanctions. So all this shows you are among friends. You can count on us. We stand by your side.
Good.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Assassin.
so much.
A total woman crush. Anyway, okay, sorry. So that's the NATO. I just wanted to catch that moment. And I don't have it teed up, but there is probably a clip of Zelensky speaking and addressing the larger group. But let's go back to, let's see, what is this? Oh, that's that. We already watched that. Okay. Let's see where we're at with this one.
The FDA's recent announcement about harnessing AI to help streamline review and approval processes speaks to this.
Oh, yeah. You
administration's
mean the same
commitment
AI
to
that they
embracing
use to
innovation
fake their
to greatly
report?
benefit the American people.
Which
and
AI is
innovation that's
that?
coming. Mr. Secretary, I was in Boston and saw in a little saline bag cells that when implanted into a
Please
human
come to Boston
produces insulin on
for the
demand.
springtime.
And they were saying there's a cure for type 1 diabetes within this decade, or having family members that have suffered with Alzheimer's.
Antonio,
There
I don't
are
know
great
what
strides
he
in
runs.
Alzheimer's this
It must
decade.
be part of the
we
EU.
want to all work
Hold
together
on.
to make sure we
I'll look him
increase
up.
this momentum. But I also say CMS recent ACA marketplace program integrity rule represents the administration dedicating to combating widespread race, fraud, and abuse plaguing our healthcare system. The rule will save American taxpayers up to $12 billion.
Antonio Calderon is the NATO Communications and Information Agency Chief Technology Officer. Let's see. Yeah, Antonio Calderon. I don't know where he's from. Was appointed Chief Technology Officer, blah, blah, blah. Let's see, blah, 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 blah. Oh, no, is that him? Yeah, that's him. Why does he look different in every picture? Do. Yeah, sorry, I don't know where he's from originally. That's what I was curious about. Is he from like Switzerland or something? Where are you from, Mr. Calderon? Oh wait, no. Antonio Costa? Oh wait, wrong one. Oh shit, sorry. That's Antonio Costa, the Prime Minister of Portugal. I'm so sorry, forgive me. I got my wrong Antonios. There's a lot of Antonios in NATO. Don't be fooled. Very popular name at NATO. No, that's Antonio Costa. That's the Prime Minister of Portugal. That's who that is. So there you go. Ask and ye shall receive. It's just about media literacy, kids. That's all it's about.
$1 billion in 2026
Well, everybody's
alone,
short
and
next
lower
to
patients' premiums by an average
Brutta.
of 5%. Fighting the chronic diseases crisis by investing in its root causes, as well as working to strengthen the safety and quality of our nation's food supply, are prime examples of common sense steps that are long overdue. As HHS continues to carry out its vital mission, communication and collaboration with
Paul,
Congress
you
will be
found
essential to ensure lasting
lady.
success. I am confident that everyone in this room wants to see our healthcare system that is driving us to be the healthiest America we can be, regardless of disagreements on the best way to get there. I would also like to take a moment to thank a personal privilege to welcome my friend Gary Andres back to the committee. Gary was our staff director when I first joined Energy and Commerce, and congratulate him on his new role as the Assistant Secretary of Health and Human Services. Secretary Kennedy, I look forward to our discussion today. Thank you for being here, and I will yield back.
Will the gentleman yield? I just want to agree. Mr. Andres was the staff member who pretty much dragged 21st Century Cures over the finish line for then Chairman Upton and myself, and we're really happy to see you here, Gary.
Thank you.
That's great. All right, let's all give him a fucking prize.
8 anti-vaccine people. It's clear that you do not intend to uphold the commitments you made to the Senate during your confirmation process to not take away people's access to vaccines. Instead, I believe you intend to use your position to advance your dangerous pseudoscience agenda and put the lives of Americans, as especially children, at risk. The chaos has not been limited to vaccines. The Trump administration cut nearly $3.8 billion in grants from the National Institutes of Health, creating extreme uncertainty for medical researchers across the country and threatening future medical innovation. Things are so chaotic at NIH that more than 340 of its top scientists signed a letter to the NIH director detailing unprecedented waste, abuse, and illegality at NIH under the Trump administration. And this was an unprecedented action by these employees who must feel they have no other options at this point other than to go public. In addition to widespread grant cancellation, tens of thousands of civil servants have been fired across HHS. And Secretary, you've claimed that these staffing cuts have not interfered with program operations, but we know for a fact that that's not true.
Yeah.
Entire offices and centers have been eliminated because there's no staff left to run them. Grantees and stakeholders can't get answers to their basic program questions. Staff at FDA and CDC have been brought back just to keep programs running, and deadlines at FDA are being missed. And these decisions have been made
These are the kind of details
without
we
any
need.
regard, in my opinion, for their impact on the health and well-being of the American people. And now, Secretary Kennedy, you've proposed a budget for the upcoming fiscal year that includes drastic and devastating cuts to our health agencies. The administration proposes a 54% cut to the CDC, threatening the agency's ability to protect the health of the American people. It proposes a 20% cut to NIH, which will seriously threaten our ability to conduct medical research into new life-saving treatments and cures.
And that starts with C and it rhymes
and
with P and it stands for
an 11%
pool.
cut to the FDA,
Tim
decimating
Pool.
our ability to prove safe and effective drugs and medical products and keep our food supply safe. The Secretary has also proposed a reorganization of HHS that would not only eliminate important programs, but entire agencies like SAMHSA. And this action will seriously undermine our ability to continue to make progress against the opioid crisis. And all these actions decimate our public health infrastructure, and they come at the same time that Republicans are pushing their big, ugly bill that would take health care away from 16 million Americans so they can get giant tax breaks for their billionaire friends. The Republican bill is the largest health care cut in American history, ripping health care away from tens of millions of Americans, increasing costs on everyone else, and forcing the closure of hospitals and nursing homes. It'll have dire consequences for our entire healthcare system, and I believe people will die. Now, there's a lot to cover today at this budget hearing, but I just want to say I do believe the Secretary must appear here again very soon for an oversight hearing on the unprecedented and troubling chaos he's created at the vaccine panel and its impacts on people's access to life-saving vaccines. These disturbing actions warrant investigation. I hope Chairman Guthrie will join us in getting answers on behalf of the American people. I have about a half a minute left. Let me just say, I don't say any of these things, Mr. Secretary, out of any, not liking you in some way. And I know I probably shouldn't say this, but, President Kennedy was my hero when I was growing up. RFK, I worked on his campaign before he was assassinated. Joe Kennedy was my friend, had the office next to me when I was first elected. Patrick Kennedy, still a friend. The younger Joe Kennedy was a member of our committee. I thought did a great job. I admire you. I admire your family. I admire your work that you did on the environment.
Oh, let's not go
But
crazy.
It's just very upsetting at this point to me. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
The gentleman yields. Members' opening statements. The chair would like to remind members that pursuant to committee rules, all members' opening
Oh my
statements
God,
will be
he
made
just
a
gave
part
me a
of the
chill
record.
in my body.
We
like
want to thank our
somebody
witness
walked
for
over
being
my
here today
grave
and
or
taking the time
something.
to testify before the subcommittee. Our witness
Yucky
today is, of
poo-poo.
course, the Honorable Robert F. Kennedy, Jr., Secretary of the U.S. Department
Okay,
of
I don't
Health
need to
and
hear
Human
what you're going to
Services.
say.
Per committee.
Third, to achieve these goals while cutting costs and political belief.
Okay, whatever.
When my team and I
Sorry.
took the helm at HHS, we set out with clear goals. First, to make America healthy again with a special focus on ending
Where's Ivan
chronic
Raiklin?
disease epidemic.
Why isn't he there?
Second, we committed to delivering more efficient, responsive, and effective service to over
What,
100
nobody
million
needs to be at
Americans who
Freedom
rely on
Corner
Medicare,
anymore?
Medicaid, and other HHS programs. Third, to achieve these goals while cutting costs for taxpayers, we intend to do more, a lot more, with less. The budget I'm presenting today
Yeah, like
supports
a
these
real
goals
fucked
and
up
reflects
Leslie
two
Jordan.
enduring American values, compassion and responsibility. I invite the committee to unite around these ideals with me. The United States remains the sickest developed nation, and yet we spend $4.5 trillion annually on healthcare, 2 to 3 times more per capita to comparable nations. Clearly, something is structurally wrong with our approach. Furthermore, healthcare costs are steadily increasing at a rate of 2% greater than the economy. This is unsustainable. If we don't staunch this trend, we will ransom our children to bankruptcy, servitude, and disastrous
We should just
health
stop doing medical
consequences.
stuff.
Yes, and exploding debt
It's
is
too
a
expensive.
social determinant of health. We won't solve this problem by throwing more money at it. We must spend smarter. We will shift funding away from bureaucracy.
Yeah, you're the
toward
guy in
direct
charge of the
impact.
checkbook, honey. That's what I
Some
want.
things at
No.
HHS will not change. We will preserve the legacy programs like Medicare and Medicaid and the foundation of the as the foundation of the MAHA agenda. Vulnerable populations, seniors, and veterans deserve consistent access to care, and I will make sure they receive it. Today, 83 million Americans, urban and rural, lack adequate access to primary care physicians. We will prioritize these families, especially Native Americans and Alaskan
I think we're
communities.
solidly in the single payer
We will protect
place here.
IHS funding, streamline its operations.
Hasn't the
and give
AI come up
tribes
with
more
anything? Is that what you're
autonomy
talking
in
about?
managing their resources. Let me be clear, we intend to make the Trump
Medicare
HHS
for all.
not only
Yep.
the most
Hell
effective,
yeah.
but also
Hell yeah.
the most
You're in the right place,
compassionate
Meowing Star.
in U.S. history. While our official budget statement outlines many priorities, I want to
Brock
highlight a
told
few.
him.
First, we will consolidate programs to better tackle mental health and addiction. These issues now rival chronic disease in their impact.
We will consolidate
HHS
programs?
will aggressively combat the opioid crisis, especially the spread of synthetic drugs like fentanyl. We will empower state,
Only
local,
real
and tribal
drugs.
leaders to create effective solutions. Second, we will address nutrition, physical activity, and healthy lifestyles. The
Oh, here
president's
comes the
budget requests
president's
$94
fitness
billion
test
in
again.
discretionary funds to support these priorities, including the Administration for a Healthy America. AHA will oversee initiatives such as Prevention Innovation Program, which targets chronic
everybody,
disease
he
and
created a new
childhood
program.
obesity through access to nutrition service
He created a new
and
program.
physical activity and reducing dependence on medication.
This is the camps, Max.
Third, we will equip FDA to expand its food safety efforts through research, regulation, inspection, and education, to remove harmful chemicals from food and packaging and explore how to close the generally recognized as safe with a grass loophole. Fourth, we will fund cutting-edge
So do you
research
mean you
at
need
the
more
NIH
regulation
while
for
cutting
that?
risky
Have you
or
talked to your boss
non-essential
yet?
studies. That includes ending gain-of-function experiments and research based upon
So
radical
ending
gender
research?
ideology.
Okay, understood.
At the
Oh, boy.
CDC, we will return
This
to
is
core
peak dumb.
missions, tracking diseases, investigating outbreaks, and sustaining public health infrastructure while cutting waste.
Which waste?
Fifth, we will
No,
eliminate
that's a
DEI
feeling. I
funding
need a
and
specific.
redirect resources toward real poverty reduction.
What does that
We will
mean?
move beyond lip service to communities of
What does that
color
mean?
and take meaningful action
That
to
sounds like a
address their
feeling.
needs.
What? Be specific.
Six, we will strengthen cybersecurity and health IT. The AI
How?
revolution
How will
has
you do that?
arrived, and we are using this technology already at HHS to manage healthcare data more efficiently, securely, and to increase the speed of drug approvals.
Wait, what?
Finally, we will rebuild public trust that eroded through the years of industry capture, waste, and misplaced priorities. We will launch a new era of transparency and public service,
right,
creating
Carrie.
an honest,
It's
science-driven
possible.
HHS that answers to the president, to Congress, and to the American people.
Corporate greed.
I look forward to working with
Period.
Congress to pursue this mission together as a bipartisan cause. Let's work side by side to make America healthy again. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Well, I get
Thank
maybe
you.
he's
The
at
gentleman
least
yields.
using
I
gruff
thank you for your
3.
testimony. I would also like to remind members that they are limited to 5 minutes of questioning. Again, as I stated before, we're going
This
to
your
hear about that
questioning?
today.
Okay, we're
We
going to
will
go
now begin
past your questioning
I
because nobody
recognize
gives a
myself for 5
shit.
minutes.
Bye.
Seeking
Oh,
information on
sorry,
February
we time
13th,
traveled.
February 28th, March 13th, March 20th, March 25th, April 1st, April 3rd, April 9th, April 10th, April 11th, April 28th, April 29th, May 28th, June 10th, June 11th, June 17th, June 22nd, and June 23rd, to which we have received no response from your agency whatsoever. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to enter these into the record, please.
Busted.
Without objection.
Thank you. On June 16th, a federal judge ruled a large swath of NIH grant terminations illegal and void and vacated them, requiring that the grants resume. These grants deal with science that is disfavored by this administration, as we just heard from the witness. Judge William Young, a Reagan appointee, said that the administration's explanations for terminating the grants were, quote, bereft of reasoning virtually in their entirety, end quote. He added, quote, I've sat on this bench now for 40 years, and I've never seen government racial discrimination like this, end quote. Mr. Secretary, I have a yes or no question. Does the department intend to comply with Judge Young's ruling? Yes or no?
I will comply with
yes
the
or
law.
no, sir?
I'll comply with the law.
Thank you. As reported, in your opening statement, Mr. Secretary, you said that you're committed to reducing bureaucracy. But as reported in the Washington Post on April 17, 2025, HHS imposed a new layer of bureaucratic review by which every disbursement has to go through political appointments at HHS. Hospitals, universities, and community health organizations have told me and the other members lately that funds are stuck at HHS due to this so-called Defend the Spend initiative. I asked you about this in the April 23rd letter over 2 months ago, to which you have not responded, and I'd like some answers. Yes or no? Did HHS conduct a cost-benefit analysis on the Defend the Spend procedures?
I don't know anything
You
about
don't
that
know,
Washington
okay.
Post article.
But you don't know what you did in your own department?
You did a cost-benefit analysis, right?
I don't know. I know that. I don't know anything about that Washington Post article.
Did you do
know
a
anything about the
cost-benefit
Defend the
analysis,
Spend
you
initiative?
stupid prick?
About what?
The Defend the Spend initiative that your agency has. You don't know about it. Mr. Chairman, I have an article here dated April 17, 2025, about the Defend the Spend initiative. I'd like unanimous consent to enter it into the
Without objection.
Now, in Mr. Secretary, on June 9th, hundreds of NIH scientists sounded the alarm on how this administration has wasted millions of research dollars, injected politics into science, and damaged the public trust. 68 Nobel laureates signed this letter. On June 10th, we sent you a letter. Of course, we haven't gotten a response with our concerns that you or your staff might retaliate against them for telling the truth. So here's my question. Will you commit today that neither you or anyone else at HHS will take any retaliatory action against the brave scientists that work at NIH? This should be an easy answer because it's illegal.
I can commit that we are absolutely depoliticizing science at
Will
NIH
you
for the
commit
first
that
time.
you will
Oh,
not
so
take
he's not
any
committing
Biden
to
administration,
not retaliating.
Ms.
Okay.
Ms. Chairwoman, the Biden administration politicizes science.
No,
and I
baby.
just
No,
gave you-
baby.
I just
Fuck
gave
you.
three
Fuck you.
of
Fuck
thousands
you.
of
Fuck
examples
you.
of how
Excuse me,
they
sir.
did that.
Excuse me, sir. I asked you a simple question.
Yeah.
Will you commit to not taking retaliatory action against the NIH scientists that signed the letter about the research dollars? Yes
I don't
or
know
no?
anything about that letter.
You don't
Oh
know
my
about the letter?
God.
No, I
Okay.
don't know
Wow, you
anything
don't know
about that
anything
letter.
about
This is
your
the
job.
first
We'll
I've
put
heard
that,
of it.
we already put that, our question in the record. I'd like a response. Now, in my last few minutes.
I know, meowing star.
In our letters dated February 28th, April 1st, and May 28th, to which you did not respond, we have some questions about reductions in force. How many HHS employees received RIF notices since you were sworn in?
I think around 10,000.
10,000. Did you personally approve those layoff decisions?
Of each one, I approved of the policy.
Thank you. You approved the policy.
Oh, okay.
Your NIH director, Jay Bhattacharya, told employees, quote, I actually don't have any transparency into how those decisions were made. And I was quite
Jay
upset
Bhattacharya
about that.
needs to resign,
It would have been
too, by
nice
the
to
way.
have some say. I guess I'll follow up with more written questions, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Grok,
The
tell
gentlelady yields. The chair
Brainworm
now
Bobby what
recognizes the
Brainworm
chairman
Bobby
of the
needs
full
to know.
committee, Chairman Guthrie, for 5 minutes of questioning.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Over here on this end.
Okay, but maybe
So
we're going to
so
be
we talked about
traveling
the
into the
reduction
future.
in force. So I'm going to ask you, I'll do 3 questions right quick.
I just want to
quick
hear
and
what
let
his
you answer.
questions are, and then
So
we'll go
what
on.
is the status of the reduction in force or
Okay,
any
we'll
potential
listen to him.
reorganization?
We'll listen to you.
And are you able to discuss the details of this potential action, or does the legal situation limit what you're able to do today? And then what does the path forward look like if the injunction's cleared?
With that issue now, the reduction in force are under litigation. And we're under a court order not to talk about them.
So if the
You're
injunction's
wasting our
lifted, the
time.
path forward, or can you talk about that as well? So what would happen if the path forward if the injunction is lifted?
What happened with?
If the injunction is
With
lifted?
what? What
Oh, would the
injunction?
path forward
I don't know
be
anything about an injunction.
If the injunction is lifted, Congressman, what was the rest of your question?
What would the
Oh my
path
God.
forward look like? The path forward.
Well,
What would be? What do you see?
He's trying to help you
HHS
out,
becoming
Brainworm
if
Bobby.
the injunction lifted with the reduction in force in place.
The people who are subject to the injunction force are on administrative leave, and they will remain on administrative leave until the injunction is lifted. At that point, we will make decisions, and in some cases, there have been gaps in our ability to perform our duties. I've brought people back. I've brought 722 people back to CDC. I brought 220 people back to NIH because we were not able to perform our job.
That's what you voted for?
And I brought
That's what you voted for?
13 people back to NIOSH for the World
This
Trade
is what
Center.
we
for
that's what
Cleveland
they voted
office and
for?
Morgantown office. They were doing important work that we did not, that was critical.
You weren't aware of? You didn't know before you prepared an
People who've been
email to them?
terminated Are people
you
who
kidding
are
me?
involved in administration. There
I
are
hope these
tremendous
all these
redundancies in my
people are held
department.
for treason. I
I'll
really
just give
do.
you a
I hope
couple
every
of
single one of
examples
these
of that.
motherfuckers is
We had
tried for
9
treason
separate
and
offices for women's health. We had 8 separate offices
dealt
for
with under
minority
the
health.
existing treason
We had
laws.
41 chief information officers.
Can't
We had
wait to see them
1,400
crying for their
external
lives
affairs staff.
as they realize
40
that the
procurement
chickens have come home to
departments using 4
roost.
different contracting systems, 9 human resource departments.
Okay,
8
well,
finance
and a
departments,
partridge in a pear tree.
40
Okay,
separate
nobody
opioid
cares.
programs.
But I mentioned in my Secretary Kennedy, quite frankly,
that guy.
I think you're trying to
Fuck
defend
that
the
guy.
indefensible. There's no way that this budget or the actions you have taken thus far as Secretary are going to make this country healthier. And you keep talking about waste at the agency, but I mentioned in my opening there are 340 top scientists who signed a letter to the NIH director detailing unprecedented waste, abuse, and illegality at NIH under the Trump administration. And the thing that really disturbs me the most is this anti-science agenda that I think it's clear to me that the vast majority of scientists and medical professionals, think your views on vaccines are dangerous, are not supported by scientific evidence. I'd like to ask the chairman, I'd like to ask unanimous consent to enter into the record a letter from 63 medical and public health groups and a letter from the American Academy of Family Physicians, American Academy of Pediatrics, American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, and the American College of Physicians, all raising grave concerns, Mr. Chairman, about the Secretary's actions to undermine vaccines.
Karen, they did.
Can you tell me the date of that letter, Congressman?
No, I'm not asking a question. I have something to ask.
Okay, because I think that letter was sent.
I'm just asking
about a week
Shut
after
up.
I got in here.
Shut the fuck up.
I'm just asking unanimous consent to enter these into the record.
Without objection.
Thank you. The Secretary, Mr. Secretary, the science is not on your side. I just really think that people are going to die as a result of your actions and congressional Republicans' actions. But you keep mentioning transparency during your testimony. You said it over and over again. But you promote, I consider, unfounded and unscientific therapies and conspiracy theories without data or evidence. And all of this has been done behind closed doors without any public engagement, despite your pledge to lead with, I think you called it, radical transparency. So let me ask you about, yes or no, though, about this radical transparency that you say you espouse. Do you believe that keeping Congress informed of your decisions and promptly answering inquiries from members of Congress fits within your promise for radical transparency? Just yes or yes?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Now, since you became Secretary, I have sent you 10 letters on a variety of topics, including the devastating workforce and program cuts at HHS. You've answered none, and your staff have given no indication that you intend to answer, despite being asked repeatedly. And this, in my opinion, is the opposite of radical transparency. I call it radical obstruction of congressional oversight. So again, yes or no, do you commit to providing a written, substantive response to all questions posed in each of these letters no later than August 1st? And if not, give me a date.
We've gotten an unprecedented number of letters from Congress, literally thousands upon thousands.
Okay, but I'm only asking for a date. Can you
and
answer
we are
by
answering
August
them
1st?
as fast as we can, and all those letters will be answered.
I haven't gotten a single answer to any of them, Mr. Secretary.
Oh, like I said, we have gotten thousands
I'm
and
just
thousands
asking
of
you,
letters from Congress.
You said that you want to be transparent. You've said that Congress in responding to us is important. So can you give me a date? If not, I'm going to assume I'm never going to hear back. I said August 1st. August 15th? Tell me.
I'm not going to tell you a date.
Well, then I don't think I'm ever going to get a response, and I think your suggestion that somehow you're being transparent is simply not true. Now, one last question. You have made a number of major decisions about vaccines, and again, there's been no public comment process or public accountability on that either. What are you afraid of? I mean, with regard to vaccines.
Pharmaceutical industry.
Oh, I mean, that's...
That industry, that committee has been a template for medical malpractice for 30 years.
I can't... The bottom line is here, we have no transparency, we have no response, you feel no responsibility to Congress whatsoever, and you just continue this ideology that's anti-science, anti-vaccine. That's all I see. I see nothing else, and I don't think I'm ever going to get a response, and so I'm going to have to ask...
Will the gentleman yield?
My time is
Well,
up.
this is, Mr. Chairman, this is the Committee of Jurisdiction.
Gentlemen, the gentleman has yielded. The chair now recognizes the vice chair of the committee, of the subcommittee, for 5 minutes of questioning. Dr. Dunn.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Secretary Kennedy, for being with us today. I want to begin by commending you for the work your department and the administration has done to make improvements in the health of the American people and to be responsible stewards of our tax dollars. Time and time again, we heard from the prior administration mismanagement across the department, but I'm particularly concerned about the damage inflicted to public trust in our health institutions. Unsurprisingly, when faced with sweeping mandates, the American public responded with skepticism and mistrust. I know you've already taken steps to restore public trust in our health institutions. Do you see those as being successful in the near future, or over what timeline?
We're going to restore public trust, Congressman, Vice Chairman, by restoring truth. we're going to tell the truth to the American people, and we're going to use evidence-based science, gold standard science. As I said, we're going to use replication. If I can take a minute just to respond to something that Congressman Pallone said, and I'll address you, Congressman Pallone. 15 years ago, you and I met. You were at that time a champion for people who had suffered injuries from vaccines. You were very adamant about it. You were the leading member of Congress on that issue. Since then, you've accepted $2 million from pharmaceutical companies in contribution, more than any other member of this committee.
Okay, we're not doing
and
this.
And your enthusiasm for supporting the old ACIP committee, which
Although I
was
do want to hear
completely
Pallone
rife and pervasive with
kick him in the
pharmaceutical
butt.
conflicts, seems to be an outcome of those contributions.
Mr. Chairman,
Thank you.
point of order. Point of order.
The chair recognizes
Point of order. The
Dr.
gentleman is impugning the reputation of a member of Congress.
Stop the clock.
Can you stop the clock for a second? Can you state the point of order?
Yeah. He was impugning Mr. Pallone's
Mr.
reputation.
Chairman, I didn't hear it. Did the
Oh,
gentleman?
you weren't paying attention. That's why.
Well, you know, it's hard to pay attention here when we're not getting any responses.
Okay,
My
okay.
understanding now is that the secretary said something about me taking money from pharmaceuticals. Is that what he said?
The secretary implied that Mr. Pallone would not fight for vaccine victims because he took money from the pharmaceutical industry.
You know,
He
again,
needs to take back those words.
you know,
Mr.
he
Okay,
needs to-
okay,
I
here
would
we go,
ask that
here
the
we go,
words
here
be
we go.
taken down.
This, Mr. Secretary, this is a valid point of order, I'm told. So I'd ask you if you would, please take back those words.
They're retracted.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to continue on with the decorum that I mentioned earlier in this hearing. And what we're going to do is to go to Dr. Dunn to finish up his time of questioning. Dr. Dunn is recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. So the department's fiscal year 26 proposed budget includes $750 million for strategic national stockpile as the Republican lead on the Pandemic and All Hazards Preparedness Act, PAPA, we call it. I believe that a strong national stockpile is critical to ensure we're prepared to respond to emergencies. Do you see this stockpile as being adequate, or $750 million budget being adequate for that, sir?
Well,
we can check
I'm
that.
very, very gratified about congressional support for reappropriating PAPA, which is absolutely critical for our pandemic response. The stockpile, I think, has now $17 billion worth of inventory. I have to check those numbers, but I'm pretty sure that that's it. And we could be doing better. The stockpile did not distinguish itself during COVID. It didn't have many of the things that we needed during COVID, and we're doing a review of that right
please
now
let
to
us
make
help you
sure
with
that the
that.
stockpile is adequately stocked.
Keep us informed, and we'll help you with that. Thank you, Mr. Secretary. You've long been an advocate of addressing mitochondrial health, kind of an interesting, edgy area that's illuminated earlier by the questions from Chairman Carter. The Haley VA Medical Center in Tampa has validated the compassionate use data for amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, Parkinson's disease, and has generated new positive data using mitochondrial transplantation for Alzheimer's. They've also entered into formal agreement with Walter Reed to use this, experiment with this treatment for traumatic brain injuries. And now NASA is entering into a similar agreement to study mitochondrial health issues associated with space travel. Secretary Kennedy, do you intend to continue these efforts?
To study mitochondrial?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I mean, that's going to be, mitochondrial dysfunction is the heart and soul of the chronic disease epidemic. And, you know, we now know that Alzheimer's disease, which was once thought to be, have a number of hypotheses about its etiology. But Alzheimer's disease is now characterized in the medical literature as type 3 diabetes, because it's recognized that mitochondrial dysfunction is not just causing disease in children, but it's also causing a disease in adults. And the cause of it is clearly our food. That's one of the principal causes, and we are absolutely laser focused.
I'm afraid our time has expired, but
Gentleman's
thank you
time
very
has
much for your
expired.
answers.
The chair now recognizes the gentleman from California, Dr. Ruiz, for 5 minutes of questioning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Earlier, Secretary Kennedy, you said you wanted to instill trust using truth, evidence-based, gold standard science. But Mr. Kennedy, in late May, the so-called, quote, Presidential Commission to Make America Healthy Again released what HHS described as a, quote, groundbreaking assessment that purported to identify the key drivers behind childhood chronic disease. Improving the health of America's children is a goal I share, and I recognize this is a passion of yours, Mr. Secretary. That is why I was struck to learn that the report was riddled with mistakes, misconstruing and intentionally or not misstating key references, data, and evidence that either do not exist or are not accurately reflected in the report. When journalists reached out to many of the authors of the studies included in the MAHA assessment,
Speaking of terribly
academics stated
horrible
that they
doctors'
never
offices,
wrote the papers as cited, or the papers cited didn't even exist altogether. Mr. Chairman, I want to submit these 3 news reports on these miscited documents from notice from May 29th and May 30th.
Without objection.
Ms. Secretary Kennedy, you're listed as the chair of the commission. Did you read the report and fact-check its sources prior to publication?
All of the factual
Did you read the reports, and did you yourself fact-check them, sir?
I did not fact-check.
You did not fact-check. So why then,
That's
as
the
has
answer.
been widely reported, excuse me, sir, I'm
That's
speaking.
the answer.
Why
Shut
then
up,
did the
RFK.
report include citations to sources that don't even exist? How does that happen under your leadership, sir?
All of the foundational assertions in that report are accurate.
They did not
Some of
exist.
them-
How can they be
some-
accurate if they did not
I said,
exist, sir?
Some of the citations
You know, in
were-
fact, my understanding
Some of the
is that
citations
even
were
once
messed
the
up for
report,
one day.
even once the report was updated, more authors and researchers came forward stating that their research was misconstrued. This is quite unbelievable, sir. In fact, I was a pre-med at UCLA. They have a great pre-med program. If somebody turned this in as an undergrad to their professor at UCLA, they would have received an F, sir, an F for the misinterpretation,
brought a prop.
the falsehoods, the denials, and also citing references that don't even exist. That's lying and dishonest, sir. My concern here
citations were corrected in one day.
is that you
Oh my
and
God,
this
stop trying
administration
to lie.
are undertaking vast changes to our federal public health system and using purported facts and gold standard evidence that you claim to have as justifications for your decisions, actions, and frankly, your dissemination of our nation's public health infrastructure.
Thank you.
Yet, what you are
that
relying
report
upon
aspires
isn't
and
real.
fails.
It isn't data
To be
driven.
preliminary
and
background
it isn't
on
based in
untested
fact,
assumptions.
science,
It supports
or reality,
nothing.
sir. It's wrong. As a secretary of one of the most consequential departments within our federal government, mischaracterizing data is not just some typos in a report that gets put on a shelf. Instead, your words and your words of your department carry significant weight. Do you agree?
The
Does it carry
citations in that
significant weight?
report were wrong.
The
That was a
question,
mistake. They
the
were
questions-
corrected within
and they're-
24 hours.
Yeah,
Bullshit.
but they were wrong still even after that.
And they were wrong, and they were generated by AI.
That your
They didn't
words carry
exist.
significant weight.
There were no erroneous
You
factual
believe your
assertions.
words carry significant weight.
Fuck
There were
off,
no
Does
erroneous
the
factual
do you
assertions.
believe that the Secretary of the Department of Health and Human Services plays an important role in upholding scientific integrity?
Yes.
Okay, so then, in fact,
How
what is
can you
most
stand
striking
behind this
about
product?
is that you've also threatened to bar governmental scientists and researchers from publishing in top medical journals. You've barred them from publishing in top reputable medical journals and instead proposed, quote, creating our own journals in-house. The idea that we would limit
Want me to
the
answer that
ability
question,
for federal
Congressman?
researchers
No,
to
it's his
publish in
time.
the
Shut
most
up.
preeminent medical journals and instead have HHS just publish more reports like their MAHA failed assessment, lacking the scientific rigor, accuracy, or peer-reviewed criteria that are required by leading journals, should worry us all for the future of medicine and innovation. Sir, you mentioned that building trust was a priority number 7. You have failed already in building that trust. How can we trust you when in your report, under your leadership, when
And
you're
all the
chair
things
of
he
this
doesn't
report,
know.
has false information and makes up research that didn't even exist? So, Chairman,
You left me
I
no time to
yield
answer
back
your question.
the remainder of my time.
Gentleman yields. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from
Ouch.
Virginia, Mr. Griffith, for 5 minutes of questioning.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I would remind everybody that Galileo got an F during his day and age, and that sometimes people who are trying to for years, and if we're not going to do
Shut the
live
fuck
home
up, Mr.
studies, let's
Griffith.
at
You don't know what
least
the fuck you're
implement a
talking about. Let's go to someone who does know what they're talking about. Who's wearing a delicious lemon
Representative Dingle for 5 minutes of questioning.
Lady
Thank you,
Dingle
Mr. Chair.
wearing
and
a
like many
beautiful
here, Mr. Secretary, I have many
lemon
questions.
themed
I'm going to go to
jacket.
an issue we
We
agree
love
on in
it.
a minute. How are we going to lower drug
Yeah,
prices?
no, he didn't get
But
an F.
before I
That's
do that,
right.
I want to
Oh,
invite
maybe
you
it's
to come
not
to the
lemon.
University
Sorry,
of
I
Michigan,
misspoke.
which is one
It's a
of,
watercolor.
the nation's leading recipients of NIH funding. You mentioned it here, but didn't talk about how much they're driving innovation and keeping the United States at the forefront of biomedical research. Every week that I'm home, I meet with a group of scientists who are doing liver cancer, pancreatic cancer, ovarian cancer, brain cancer, diabetes, burn pits, and mental health. Groundbreaking. That's
He
just
didn't even read
frozen.
that report,
And we're going to lose
Karen.
a generation of researchers. And I want you to hear about their work and how worried about they are, because this country has led for the last decades in innovation and
Oh,
technology.
he will. It's coming out next month.
And we cannot lose that. So please, can we work together to make sure the research that has to happen does?
Congressman, I
Yeah,
will
the
work
E.
absolutely
coli
with
might
you.
help.
You can call me in my office if you have a study that has been cut. That
I have a lot.
Excuse
I'm
me?
going to-
up and we'll
Why
talk
d-
about them, and I'll get you answers on all of them.
Okay, listen. That's the same fucking nonsense we heard yesterday when it came to Pam Bondage and the fact that grants for local law enforcement or whatever were canceled. And Pam Bondage's answer was exactly what this motherfucker just said, which is, "Oh, just come and call me and come in my office and we'll talk. I'll carve out whatever you need carved out." So that's how this works? Because frankly, those grants were already approved by Congress, by elected representatives. This douchebag has not been elected. He shouldn't decide what your tax money is spent on. Period. That's the job of Congress. They did their job. And this douchebag went ahead and canceled all that shit. People should be furious.
Thank you. But now, let's talk about an issue we agree on, which is lowering, how are we going to lower drug prices?
The issue of
Lowering drug prices for American consumers. This is why Democrats work so hard to pass the Inflation
It's just
Reduction Act
sloppy.
and create
If
the
nothing
Medicare
else,
drug
if
price
it's not
negotiation
extortion, it's
program,
at
which
baseline
provided
sloppy.
You, the Secretary, with the authority to negotiate pharmaceutical companies to lower drug prices for the Medicare program. Do you support the drug price negotiation program and commit to using the tools and authorities provided to you under the law to drive down prescription drug costs for the American?
I mean, we're using every tool that's given to us, and
very specific
President
question,
Trump
sir.
has ordered me to do something that no other president has, which is to establish across the board most favored nations so that we're not paying more than Europeans are. We're in negotiations right now today with the
With
drug
who?
companies over that. We're going to be able
When?
to
Who's
lower
who's
drug
negotiating
prices during
that?
this administration.
Who's on your team?
More than any administration in history.
So, you know, I
Stop
agree
it.
with you. Just for the record, I offered that amendment in committee when we were doing
Thank you,
reconciliation.
Congresswoman.
And every Democrat voted for it. And I love my friends, but they voted against it. Just going to make that point. But can
All
you,
right, well, then let's work together on it.
deal. But can you tell me how, I want to understand how you intend to get drug manufacturers to comply and lower their U.S. prices. Will you require manufacturers to align their U.S. prices with those overseas? And if so, how will you enforce it?
How do we're going to get it. We have a number of sticks and we have a number of carrots.
All right, we want to work with you. We got to do it.
I'm happy to go into detail.
Well, I'm with you.
It's a very complex negotiation.
I know that.
And it's going to take not only cooperation with the drug companies, but cooperation with the European community, with Canada, with Japan, with Australia. And we're working on all that right now.
And we've got to get our Republican colleagues to support us. Do you expect to reach manufacturer agreements on a negotiated price by November 1, as required by the statute, on time for seniors to be able to benefit from these lower drug prices at the pharmacy counter by January 1, 2027?
We are on time at this point. I don't know.
And at this point bothers me, so can we just work together to ensure it's done by November
Yes,
1?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
I look forward to it.
Stop
Do
it.
you commit to rejecting administrative changes to the IRA that are contrary to your stated goal of driving down prescription drug prices for the American people?
Well, we are going to drive down prescription drug prices. I don't know what provisions you're talking about.
I don't know how.
If it's the negotiation provisions, as I said, we are doing that right now.
Oh, really?
Thanks,
I
and let
really
me
want to
ask
know
you,
more
'cause
about
we're running
that.
out of time. How does this commitment to lowering drug prices square with the administration's proposal to extend the period that small molecule drugs are excluded from negotiation from 9 to 13 years, thereby keeping drug prices higher for Medicare beneficiaries for an additional 4 years of these drugs?
I'm not sure what your question is.
Well, you've made it, you're some of the companies that we want to lower those drugs, you've excluded them from negotiations.
What?
From 9 to 13 years on the
What?
patent. So that's going to keep it higher for Medicare
Wait, what?
beneficiaries. We're not going to be able to negotiate on a lot of drugs that seniors are taking.
Wait, what?
Well, I mean, we're
Well, there's a loophole.
all drugs across the board.
But you just wait.
So,
What?
I mean, our
I'm going to hold you to
central
that. We're going to
focus-
work together because we got to
What?
lower the cost of drugs for the American people. Thank
9
you,
to
and I yield
13
back.
drug companies are
Gentlelady
excluded
yields
from
back. The chair now
negotiations. Hold on.
recognizes the gentleman from Florida, Representative Bill Arrakis, for 5 minutes of questioning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate it
Oh
very
no,
much.
I think we might
for
be.
holding this
Nope,
hearing,
we're
and,
moving ahead. Oh
Lauren,
my God,
thank
it's
you,
warp speed. Here we go. Everybody, hold on to your butts.
to our country, and thanks.
Because here we go.
The gentleman
Bye.
yields. The chair now recognizes
Oh,
the
here we go.
gentlelady from Illinois, Representative Kelly, for 5 minutes of questioning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Secretary Kennedy, for appearing before our committee. I'm pleased to see a focus on food as medicine and the well-being of all Americans in the FY26 budget, an issue of mutual interest and concern. I'm deeply troubled, however, by so many things happening at HHS under your leadership, especially your ill-informed decision to reverse existing recommendations for pregnant women and healthy children to receive the COVID-19 vaccine. The chair of the American Academy of Pediatrics Committee on Infectious Diseases described your decision as really concerning and taking away choice. The American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists and the March of Dimes have also opposed your decision. Chairman, I have 2 items to insert into the record. ACOG's statement on HHS recommendations regarding the COVID-19 vaccine during pregnancy, or the COVID vaccine during pregnancy, and also RFK Jr. says COVID shots no longer recommended for kids and pregnant women.
Without objection.
Thank you. Due to my limited time, I ask that you please respond to my questions with a yes or no. Mr. Secretary, does HHS COVID-19 vaccine webpage reflect the department's view on COVID-19 vaccines? Yes or no?
First of all, what you said was wrong. We're not depriving anybody of choice. If a pregnant woman wants the COVID-19 vaccine, she can get it. We're no longer recommending it because there was no science supporting that recommendation.
What?
There's study after study that shows adverse events. One study, 27 adverse events.
What?
During pregnancy from that
I'm going to
campaign.
interrupt you because I need to reclaim my
Another
time.
study
Yeah,
shows
reclaim your
increase
time
in
because he's
miscarriage. There's
spewing
no safety net
disinformation.
for it. So we're not
Don't
going
let him do
Not
it.
true. We have a,
don't have safety.
We have a
data.
pediatrician that is on this committee. Not true. I'll go back to, does HHS COVID-19 vaccine webpage reflect the department's viewpoint on COVID-19 vaccines? Please, yes or no?
I didn't understand the question. You're asking if
the HHS's COVID-19 vaccine webpage reflect the department's viewpoint on COVID-19 vaccines.
I imagine it does. I haven't seen the website.
You haven't seen HHS's COVID-19 vaccine?
No, I haven't read the entire
Well, it's kind of
website.
troubling that you're unaware of what your own department's website states on the safety and efficacy of
Ouch.
the vaccination. Let me read it directly to you. COVID-19 vaccines are safe and effective, and COVID-19 vaccines are available to everyone 6 months and older. Getting vaccinated vaccinated is the best way to help protect people from COVID-19. Get vaccinated if you haven't. Chairman, I have the paper copy of the website. You have insert into the record, COVID vaccine 19, excuse me.
Without objection.
Okay. And again, yes or no?
As I said.
Yes or no, within the past 45 days, has the CDC recommended COVID vaccinations for people at high risk? Yes or no?
For people at
I don't
high
have a lot
risk,
of time.
yes.
So in fact, on May 12, 2025, CDC stated in its interim clinical considerations for the use of COVID-19 vaccines in the United States, and I quote, COVID-19 vaccination is recommended for everyone aged 6 months and older in the U.S. CDC goes on to
I
state
will
that
link a
vaccination
Harvard
is
Law article
especially
about the
important for a
exemptions to
number of
drug
certain groups of
negotiation
people,
in the
including
description of
pregnant
the
women,
video.
in order to protect
It doesn't
themselves
fit
and
in
their
the chat.
infants. Also, I'm inserting into the record the following copy of the
Congressman,
website.
we don't recommend COVID vaccines for pregnant women or for children.
Excuse me?
We do not recommend it
What?
for pregnant women or children.
What?
I think I just
Excuse
read,
me?
especially important for a number of certain groups of people, including pregnant women, in order to
Oh
protect
my
themselves
God.
and their infants. I'm inserting into the record the following
my
copy
God.
of the website, May 12, 2025.
This is so sad to
COVID-19
me.
vaccines and vaccinations, Mr. Chairman.
Without objection.
It appears CDC was not consulted, given that it took days for them to update their immunization
Oh my
schedule
God.
to reflect your new policy. I'd like to insert into the record a Washington Post story reiterating this. CDC blindsided as RFK Jr. changes COVID-19 vaccine recommendations.
Without objection.
Okay, once again, yes or no? Did you consult CDC before changing vaccine policy related to COVID-19 vaccine as it relates to pregnancy?
We absolutely consult CDC on every policy regarding vaccination.
Okay, it's different than what I yield back.
Gentlelady yields.
Okay, I just want to say something because earlier there was a question about Pallone and whether he had taken money from drug companies. He has taken money from the healthcare industry, from pharmaceutical companies. But here's the accusation was that he doesn't care about vaccine injury because he takes money from the vaccine companies. And so that assertion is maligning his character, and that's what was being objected to, just so you know. So both things are true. He does take money from pharmaceutical companies, which let's get rid of Citizens United, please and thank you. Please and thank you. And then also, but he is probably not in the mode of selecting out Trump voters or vaccine deniers or others. So he probably is actually legislating for all of those people. So that is actually a mischaracterization and a defamation of his character, or whatever you would call it. So I just wanted to close that loop because I did check his open secrets, and there definitely is money coming in from healthcare industry wherever he's located. So there you go. Just letting you know. Letting you know the facts, the media literacy, the down, the dirty, the lovely, the wonderful, the awful.
The chair now recognizes the gentleman from Texas, Representative
no,
Crenshaw,
sorry.
for 5 minutes of questioning.
Oh no, sorry. Oh, here we go. Whoops.
With VA,
whoopsie,
I talk
whoopsie, whoopsie.
with solving the problem of Alzheimer's deeply interested.
Here we go, and then
All right, with your gentleman's time has expired. We now recognize Representative Farragut
Who are you?
from California.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Mr. Secretary, for being here today. You mentioned that one of the focuses is to end chronic disease epidemic. So I want to talk about Alzheimer's. Alzheimer's devastates millions of Americans across this country. It robs loved ones of their memories, their independence, and ultimately their lives. Today, almost 7 million Americans live with Alzheimer's disease, and that number will double by 2060. I believe the NIH
meowing star,
is
all of
doing
that.
research that is critical to the development
All
of
of that.
Alzheimer's disease treatments. Do you agree with that assessment? Yes or no?
We are completely committed
Do you
to
agree
solving the
that
problem of Alzheimer's.
Do you agree that the NIH's research is critical to the development of Alzheimer's disease
I
treatments?
do. The issue is
You do?
complicated.
Okay.
If you want a real answer to that question,
Well,
I'm happy to give it.
I have limited
You didn't
time.
answer it, though.
So
You had a
said
chance
that
to
you
answer
think
it, and you
it's
said something
critical,
stupid.
Yet, you are proposing to cut $1.7 billion from the NIH's National Institute on Aging, which is the primary federal agency that supports and conducts Alzheimer's and dementia research. That's a lot of money, Mr. Secretary, for you being committed to ending an epidemic like Alzheimer's and saying that you believe that NIH does critical work. That is a ton of money. I want to turn to Alzheimer's disease research centers. Are you familiar with Alzheimer's disease research centers?
No, I can't say that I am.
Okay, well, let me tell you that the research centers, 35 NIH-funded Alzheimer's research centers,
I hope you
we're
guys are
helping
as scared as
families
I am.
across the country. They support things like research, diagnosis, brain donation, and caregiver services. They were really critical, and they are very critical across this country in all states, red states,
I
blue
don't know
states,
about
purple
you, but
states.
I feel like
As of
I
May
have a lot of people I
13th,
love who depend on
13
Medicare
of the 35
to live.
centers have lost federal funding due to delays
So,
and uncertainty
this is big.
at the NIH. 13, that's a lot of them. Mr. Secretary,
Oh,
are you
Meowing
aware
Star,
of
that's
that?
right.
I am not, but I will look into it.
I really appreciate that you will look into that.
Oh,
because
that's so great,
states
Meowing
like
Star.
Florida,
I'm so
Georgia,
glad you
and
had that
Tennessee
experience.
have lost millions and millions of dollars. And I'm talking about red
that's
states
good.
and purple states, not
I
just
love
blue
that.
states.
That was
and so now-
Pallone,
irrelevant to us whether it's in a blue or
Pallone,
red
this
state.
guy
Well,
on this
sometimes it
Democrat
doesn't
on
feel
this
that way.
committee.
That's why I say that. Now we're seeing layoffs, frozen brain banks, and halted research. That's almost 70%.
RFK said,
that's
"You don't
almost
care about
40% of our
unvaccinated
Alzheimer's
people.
research
Vaccine
centers in
injury."
crisis. So I want to ask that we insert into the record a number of articles. Alzheimer's disease research centers struggle as 1/3 lose their federal funding, and a second article of life-saving Alzheimer's research delayed by Trump funding cuts. Mr. Chair, into the record. Okay, I'm going to move on. I'm going to assume that's a yes because my time is going.
Yeah, I'm diabetic.
With no
I
objection.
love to.
So, Mr. Secretary, 14 of the centers that remain have their funding that's up for renewal in 2026. The budget you propose, as I mentioned, is going to cut $1.7 billion from the NIH's National Aging, the Institute of Aging, which is the main federal agency supports it. What I would like is for you to commit that you are going to fully fund the NIH's 14 centers whose renewal and up is in 2026. Will you commit?
I can tell you that we have not cut any clinical trials on Alzheimer's.
I'm telling you that I'm just telling you there was 35 and you guys have already cut 13 of them because of the funding. This was congressionally approved dollars on a bipartisan basis. There is almost nothing more bipartisan than Alzheimer's funding, okay? Money was approved, congressionally approved dollars, and your agency has cut 13 of 35. I'm simply asking for a simple commitment, and that is from the 14 that remain, okay, that you at least commit to fully funding those.
I'm happy to work with you on this, Congresswoman. I don't know that what you're saying is true. It's something that I'll have to confirm.
Wow.
And I'm happy to work with you on it.
Wow.
Well, I appreciate that.
I mean, this is pretty
you're gonna
easy
work
to fact
with me
check.
on that. But it is troubling that the head of the
Wow.
department doesn't know about these
Yeah.
drastic cuts to something like Alzheimer's, which is so very, very critical.
Again, I
Right.
don't know what you're telling me is true, but I'm
Really?
happy to work
Okay.
with you on it.
Gentleman's time
But you're
has expired.
questioning the fact
I now
that it might be
recognize
true?
the gentleman from Pennsylvania,
God,
Dr.
you look like
Joyce.
you're about to die, sir. I don't know
Thank
what
you,
is
Mr.
wrong,
Chairman.
but you better. I
Thank you,
hope there's a
Senator
doctor in the house.
Secretary Kennedy for being
Sorry,
here.
we got to go.
Thank
We
you
got
for
to
your
go back.
commitment
We
to
got to go to the
serving
smart
our
people. I'm
5
real
minutes
sorry about
of
that.
questioning.
Secretary Kennedy, on May 27th, you posted a 60-second video on your X account
We don't have time for
unilaterally
stupid
changing
people.
vaccine
Here.
recommendations without consulting the customary panel of experts. As a pediatrician, I find that extremely alarming. So I thought we would talk a little bit about some vaccine-preventable diseases. Secretary Kennedy, and these are yes or no questions, have you ever treated measles?
Do I what?
Have you ever treated measles?
No.
Well, I have.
Oh, is
Let
he
me tell
laughing?
you how miserable it is. These kids have high fevers, struggling to breathe, and they are crying. They suffer. Great news is that there is a vaccine to prevent it. Secretary Kennedy, again, a yes or no question. Have you ever treated bacterial meningitis?
No.
Well, I have. These babies are so sick. They come into the ER with high fevers. They are floppy, and we have to figure out why. Do you know how we figure out if a baby has meningitis?
Excuse me?
Do you know how we figure out if a baby has spinal meningitis?
How many babies?
I'm going to explain how
Wow, are
how
you
we figure
drunk,
out and
sir?
determine if a baby
Are
has
you
meningitis.
Okay. impaired
We
right
insert
now?
a needle between vertebrae until the fluid that surrounds the spinal cord drips out into a test tube. It's called a spinal tap. We used to do lots of them. Fortunately, we don't have to do very many of these anymore because we have 3 vaccines that prevent childhood meningitis. These are miracles. Secretary Kennedy, yes or no, have you ever treated pertussis or whooping cough?
No, I've had it.
Well, I have. And in infants, in fact, the one I treated, weeks old, came in because the baby just stopped breathing and turned blue. Let me tell you how scared those parents were. And I've treated a bunch of older kids with it. They cough so hard, they vomit. They run out of air. They break ribs. And if you don't catch it before 2 weeks, antibiotics don't even work. They cough for months with broken ribs, and that is why it is called a 100-day cough. But you know what's great? There's a vaccine that prevents this. Of course, here's the thing. Vaccines only work if you actually give them. And we know your record on this. We rely on the Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices, a panel of experts to recommend which vaccines people should get at which ages and the like. Now, I know Senator Cassidy had concerns about your views on this, and so when he voted to confirm you as Secretary of HHS on February 4th, he explained that decision by saying on the Senate floor that, quote, if confirmed, you will maintain the CDC's Advisory Committee on Immunization Practices without changes. But then 2 weeks ago, you fired all 17 experts on that very
Holy
committee.
shit.
Mr. Secretary, question for you.
Holy
Did you lie
fucking
to Senator
shit.
Cassidy when you told him you would not change this
Yeah.
panel of experts?
Did you?
I never made that agreement.
Excuse me?
So are you saying that Senator Cassidy lied when he was on the Senate floor, lied to the American people?
I didn't see that statement by Senator Cassidy. I've only heard it from you. But if he said that I agreed to it, it would be inaccurate. I made an agreement with him. I made an agreement with him, and he and I have talked many times about that agreement.
My time. I just want to tell you that for most of us sitting here right now, we believe
Oh my
Senator
God.
Cassidy more than we trust you when it comes to vaccinations. It sounds to me like you gave him the answer he needed to hear in order to get his confirmation vote, and then as soon as you were Secretary, you turned around and did whatever you want. You fired all 17 members.
Holy shit.
I'm complying with all the
Mr. Cassidy,
agreements
do you have a
that
comment?
Senator Cassidy.
Mr.
You're now on
Cassidy,
the
do you have a
record.
comment
You lied
on
to
that?
Senator Cassidy. You have lied to the American people. You have lied to parents about vaccines for 20 years. And I also want to be clear that I will lay all responsibility for every death from a vaccine-preventable illness at your feet. I
Fuck
yield
yeah,
back.
lady.
The gentlelady yields. The chair
Certified
now recognizes
badass.
the gentleman from
Nice.
Ohio, Representative Balderson, for 5 minutes of questioning.
Oh,
Thank you, Mr.
here
Chairman.
we go.
Thank you,
You're
Secretary
jumping in
Kennedy,
the
for being
time
here today.
machine.
As the
Jump in
co-chair
the
of the
time
Digital Health
machine.
Caucus,
Are
Jump in the
closing at an
time
extraordinary
machine.
rate. You call
They can find out what's happening to
Jumping
their
in
health
the
without
time
going to see a
machine.
doctor or to go to an urgent
Jumping
care
in the
or an
time
emergency room.
machine.
I agree with
Go
that.
to the
and I've been
urgent care.
working with
Yeah,
the
what's
federally
wrong with you?
qualified health centers.
That's right, just
doing some pilots with
privatization.
that. So, Mr. Chairman, thank you,
Privatization.
Secretary Kennedy. Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
That's privatization right
Gentleman
there,
yields.
babies.
The chair now recognizes the gentlelady from Massachusetts, Representative Trahan, for 5 minutes of questioning.
Thank you. Mr. Secretary, during your
Let's do it.
confirmation, you told Senator Barrasso that rural hospitals are closing at an extraordinary rate. You called them economic drivers, lifelines in our communities, and you gave your word to protect them. Republicans on this committee also promised they wouldn't support a bill that led to more closures. Yet here we are. The Republican tax bill slashes Medicaid and the ACA by over $1 trillion, leaving 16 million more people uninsured and driving up uncompensated care. At the same time, it cuts provider taxes and state-directed payments, the few tools that states have to keep hospitals afloat. Cutting coverage and cutting payments, well, that's a perfect storm for closures, Mr. Secretary. So yes or no, with Republicans in Congress set to cut more than $1 trillion and counting from our healthcare system, will hospitals be forced to cut services or close altogether?
We're not cutting coverage for any American patient.
Well, it sounds like you don't want to admit the reality that your department
I'm happy to explain.
I can tell you what the math means. I didn't know the answer to the last question or where I was, but I can answer this
because
one.
hospitals across the country have warned that this bill is what they referred to as a death knell, even before Republicans in the Senate doubled the cuts in provider taxes and state-directed payments, bringing
16 million people
of hospital uncompensated care alone
None of the
to
people
more than
he knows.
$443 billion. Hospitals are raising a huge warning flag that the big ugly bill will result in closures
bub.
and
We call it
service
the bub.
reductions across the country in all our communities.
Hashtag bub.
I ask unanimous consent
Yeah,
to enter
right,
into
Jim.
the record several of their statements.
Here comes
and
the algae
analyses.
rage.
Mr. Secretary, if you claim the hospitals in our districts that are already operating in the red and serving mostly Medicaid and Medicare patients are going to survive, then where exactly is that money going to come from?
where is it
What
coming
is
from?
your plan to keep them open and
Is it a
deliver the
trickle
same
down?
level of service?
Is it a trickle-down situation?
Well, the issue of state-directed payments, I think, as you understand, is a complicated one because the essential agreement under Medicare is that the states will pay a certain amount and the federal government will pay a certain amount.
Right.
The states have learned to game that. Some states have learned to game that system so the federal government
If you
is
could
paying
just get to the part where when that revenue stream
Excuse
is
me?
cut, how are you going to ensure that services aren't cut and
That's right.
hospitals don't
He's asking
close?
a very specific
Many
question.
times, there's just no alternative on the table for a funding mechanism. So what's your plan?
Well, that is a decision ultimately that's got to come from Congress. So that's going to be up to you. But what I would say to you
Don't
is
let
I
her
would like
talk
to
to
work
you
with
like
you on this
that.
because it's a complicated
Bobby,
issue.
this is your
It's not just
brainworm
it's not that
talking.
simple. Are we
Bobby
going to
Jr.,
I'm happy to work with you on this, Mr. Secretary.
This your brainworm
But this is going to
talking.
happen in the
Don't
next
let her
couple
talk
of
to you
weeks. And
like
if there
that.
isn't a funding mechanism in place, if there isn't an act of Congress to replace that revenue stream, hospitals are going to close. People are going to die. When hospitals are pushed to the brink, they cut maternity wards, they cut mental health, they cut emergency rooms. That's who they cut first. This isn't hypothetical. It's already happening. From 2011 to 23, dozens of hospitals in states like Iowa and Texas eliminated
Scott? Fuck
obstetrics
yeah.
entirely. These are Medicaid department services, and under Donald Trump's bill, they're the first to go. And it's not just rural hospitals. We're seeing it in my district, too. The only maternity ward in north central Massachusetts shut down last year. Then the collapse of Steward forced 2 more hospitals to close, including one that served thousands of families. Boston Children's, one of the best in the country, is also at risk. Your budget slashes Medicaid,
oh my God, I
which
used
covers
that hospital
over
for my baby
40%
when
of
she was
kids,
little.
and eliminates programs that trains most pediatricians.
And Mass
Hospitals
General.
are already bracing. They're pausing projects. They're canceling
And
expansions.
Beth
They're
Israel.
shelving cost-saving investments. The chaos that your budget creates, including decimating NIH, is driving up costs.
we're not cutting Medicaid. There's no cuts to Medicaid. There's simply restrictions in the growth of Medicaid over the next decade.
People are going to lose their coverage. Uncompensated care is going to rise. Hospitals are not prepared for that reality. Look, here's the truth.
The only
People are going to die. These hospitals are going to close.
I love her.
Labor and delivery units are going to disappear. If mental health services are stripped away,
That's
This is
the
why you can't
consequence of
convince
your
me that
policies.
Democrats and
And look,
Republicans
you've
are the
already
same.
shown
I'm
you don't
sorry,
have a
you're
grip
wrong.
on your department. You
I
don't know
watch them
basic
every
things that
day.
are on your
You're
website
wrong.
or programs that are closing.
Gentlelady's time has expired. The chair now
Yeah, she's like,
recognizes
"Give me
the
a fucking
gentlelady
break."
from Tennessee, Representative Harshbarger, for 5 minutes of question.
Badass.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thank you, Mr. Secretary,
Unfortunately,
for being here today.
Madam,
First of all, I want you
lose
to
your
personally know
mind.
how much I aligned with
Oh,
your
here we go.
philosophy on
From Texas, Representative VC for 5 minutes of questioning.
Thank you, Mr.
Here we
Chairman.
go.
Mr. Secretary, this country is in the grip of an opioid epidemic that's ripping through America. It's gutting our schools, it's shattering our neighborhoods, and it's tearing families apart. Between 1999 and 2019, overdose deaths
They're just not.
involving opioids
I mean, yeah, everybody
skyrocketed
needs to do better.
over 500%.
But they're just not the same.
And this
so you
epidemic
can't-
has
that,
not
that just means you're not
discriminated.
paying attention.
It is not. It doesn't care if you're rich, if you're poor, if you're black or you're white, if you're Democrat or Republican. It takes veterans, mothers, students, and children. Over 240,000 children
Mrs.
have
Foghorn
lost
Leghorn.
a parent
That's
to
right.
opioids.
That's who
An
we
entire
just missed
generation
over.
Grown up with grief and trauma, and over 42,000 veterans lost to overdose. And now, instead of strengthening the VA, the administration you work for plans to gut it, cutting 80,000 jobs, cutting resources from heroes who fought for us. In 2020, 48,000 Americans died from opioid overdoses. Despite historic progress under the Biden administration, where overdose deaths dropped 65% from 2023 to 2024, this administration now plans to cut critical programs and fire behavioral health and crisis specialists, threatening to strip hundreds of thousands of veterans of life-saving treatment to prioritize billionaires over those who served. But most egregiously, in the FY26 budget, the Trump administration is proposing to slash over $1 billion from the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. That is literally $1 billion ripped away from treatment, prevention, and hope. Mr. Secretary, you don't slash lifelines in the middle of a rescue. You don't call 911 and hang up halfway through. And you sure as hell don't preach about redemption while cutting the funding that makes redemption possible. So let's be clear. This isn't a budget, it's a death sentence. And now I have a few questions for you, Mr. Secretary. Mr. Secretary, do you believe the United States is currently facing an opioid crisis?
And that's why I've reauthorized.
So you do. So do you believe the federal government has a responsibility to combat this crisis, yes or no?
The federal government has a role in it,
Okay,
certainly.
thank you.
An important role.
Mr. Secretary,
Nobody
you're
cares.
aware that the president's own brother died from addiction. You've heard J.D. Vance, the vice president of the United States, talk about his mother's addiction. And you've talked about your own history and your own addiction issues in 1983, where you sought treatment for heroin addiction at a rehab facility in New Jersey. Was that treatment effective for you?
I've been sober.
Okay.
I also would point out that I lost a brother to this disease. It's a priority for me, and it's going to be a priority for
nobody cares.
HHS.
And let me also
Who
ask
cares
you,
about
do
your
you
personal
believe,
issues?
yes or no, do you believe that structured recovery programs were
Karen, that's
essential
just
to
fucking
your own
awful.
recovery?
My recovery program was mainly.
Yes or no?
in-
Do you think that was important for your own recovery?
It was important.
Okay, so Mr. Secretary, overcoming addiction is commendable. I've had family members that have overcome addiction. I commend you for that. But not everyone have the resources that your family has to get the care that they need. And because you know better than anyone that recovery without treatment is challenging at best. So, Mr. Secretary, please tell me, why would you deny millions of Americans the same access to care that saved your life?
We're not denying anybody.
I wish they wouldn't ask questions quite that way.
Some of the funding away from SAMHSA to the states. The
You're
addiction
taking
problem
down
Mr. Secretary,
SAMHSA.
is very different than
me-
the addiction problem in
Let me ask you this. Let me ask
Oh
you
my
this, Mr.
God.
Secretary. You've credited the 12 steps in your recovery. So can you tell this committee what is step 4?
It's making a fearless inventory.
Is making a fearless inventory of ourselves.
Yeah.
And you remember that one. And do you remember step 12?
Yeah, it's having had a spiritual awakening. We try to help other alcoholics and addicts.
So tell me, Mr. Secretary, yes or no, does cutting off treatment for people still suffering align with step 4 and step 12?
We're not cutting off treatment for anybody, Congressman.
Oh, you're such a liar.
As I said, I'm happy to explain it, but
You're
you don't
such a
give me any
liar.
chance to answer questions. By
Just
which
like
is
you
part of the
lied
game
about
that I play here.
Cassidy.
Mr. Secretary, I've heard your story. Again, I think that was great
Fearless
that you
moral
talked about your
inventory,
recovery.
yeah.
But man, you can't pull the ladder and shut the door. There are people like President Trump's family and your family that have resources, but there are families like mine and Secretary Vance's that
Gentleman's
don't.
time
And you're
has
pulling the
As we
ladder
said,
up.
we're not
You're pulling
denying,
the ladder
Time
up.
has
not
expired.
taking treatment away from anybody.
The subcommittee is going to take a quick 5-minute break. We'll be right back in 5 minutes.
Well, la-dee-da. Woof. I don't know. I feel like I've had enough of that, frankly. Wow. He's really emboldened. Let me see how they come back. That's a Republican. Who's that? Who are you? Who are you? I think I like you. But who are you? Miss Fletcher. All right. We'll come back for that. AA is free if it's your cup of tea. That's true. Yeah, and it's a good compliment, I think. I went to a couple of AA meetings back in the beginning. It just didn't happen to be for me, but I found the group really welcoming and nice and very just didn't seem to be the something that I needed at that particular moment, but I think it works for some people. Whale juice for everyone. That'll fix everything. In 5 minutes. Okay, actually, we will come back and just see, because I think they're almost done, actually. I don't want to... I'll have FOMO if we don't actually see the whole thing. All right, here we go. We're back to the Democrat, though, after this. This is post 5-minute break.
Representative Fletcher for 5 minutes of questioning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Secretary Kennedy, do you know the requirements for hospitals under the Emergency Medical Treatment and Labor Act, which is commonly called by its shortened name, EMTALA?
Yes, I do.
And just generally, what do you know EMTALA to require of hospitals?
That every hospital has to treat anybody who comes to the emergency room.
And they have to provide stabilizing care regardless of their ability to pay and regardless of the type of care required, correct?
Exactly.
And Secretary Kennedy, you understand that according to the American College of Emergency Physicians, American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists, the American Medical Association, and the Society for Maternal Fetal Medicine, in certain circumstances, necessary stabilizing care for the purposes of fulfilling a hospital's obligation under EMTALA could be provided.
Sorry, the audio's
care,
off
correct?
the visual,
In
but
cases,
I don't
for
want to
example,
mess with it.
ectopic pregnancies and botched abortions and in miscarriages, those hospitals are required to provide care. Elective abortions, they're not.
But they are required to provide
But they
abortion
don't.
care if that is the care that a physician treating the patient determines in their medical judgment is the care necessary to stabilize the patient and to protect their life and health, correct?
And because there were confusion about that, I sent out a letter to every hospital in America restating that in those conditions they must provide care.
Okay, and I think that that's consistent with what we have heard from emergency physicians, obstetricians, other treating physicians that have made clear that in certain circumstances, clinically recognized, evidence-based, necessary medical treatment in various circumstances, including but not limited to the ones you just listed, abortion care is the necessary stabilizing care, or some kind of care that may end a pregnancy. So in those cases, you would agree with me that EMTALA requires the hospitals to provide that care?
Yes.
And
that's what President Trump believes.
And
okay.
you just mentioned that you issued some guidance to all the hospitals and care providers across the country, rescinding some guidance from the prior administration and making clear that that is the requirement. Now, the guidance that you rescinded was issued shortly after the Dobbs decision, which was announced 3 years ago today, and created some confusion. And so I think one thing that's important, one thing that I hear from doctors in states like mine, is that this kind of guidance and clarity is very, very important to giving the practicing physicians the comfort that they need to do their jobs. And so I think it's really important that the letters that our committee has sent or members of our committee have sent
But they
to
don't
you
provide
with
care.
concerns
We've read
about
story
actions being
after story,
taken at
Peace Love, where
HHS. And
care is not
certainly,
provided.
I agree with a lot of those concerns. I represent Houston, Texas, and we have an incredible amount of research going on through National Institutes of Health, incredible development of all kinds of transformative therapies and treatments. And
Not
so
sure, Karen.
we have a lot of concerns. I know you mentioned that you have gotten thousands of letters from members of Congress, and I can appreciate that. But I would ask that, recognizing that this committee, the House Energy and Commerce Committee, has jurisdiction.
He should use
and
his
is the
faulty
committee of
AI
jurisdiction
to
over HHS, that the
summarize
requests
those
that
letters.
come from the ranking member, that come from the Energy and Commerce Committee, get prioritized by your staff in terms of looking at congressional responses. I think it would be
Since
very
they're the
important,
oversight committee for them?
Because we have jurisdiction, and you've indicated you'll work with a lot of folks here on a lot of different issues, and getting those answers and being able to work to address the concerns that we have.
I agree,
Is
Jen.
really important. So I just ask that you prioritize those responses.
You have my commitment to do
There
that,
should always be a
Congresswoman.
minority
I
witness, I
also
think.
say this, and it's the same thing that I said to Congresswoman Dingell. It's not our intention to cut anything that is the kind of research that you're talking about, which is critical
We didn't want to
research.
cut that.
We need to keep America
Did we
the hub
cut
of that kind
that?
of research.
Did I do that?
And there was some malicious
Did I
compliance.
do that?
There was some mistakes made.
Oh, mistakes.
Thank you,
If
Mr.
the gentlelady's
Secretary. My
time
time
is-
has
You know,
expired.
shit
and so I will
happens.
come back.
Examples, contact us, and we will redress.
All right, yeah, we're gonna
chair now
fix it.
recognizes the gentlelady
Okay,
from
I'm gonna
Florida.
try and get this to a place where it's not so fucked up. All right, here we're gonna watch AOC rip him a new asshole, God willing. That would be great. Look at this! Look at this composition, like the Last Supper. Look at the Last Supper over here. Okay, here we go. Let's see if we've lined it up. I doubt it, but we'll try.
Require background checks. They
God damn it,
require
they just don't do it.
identification even. I've watched horror stories of the same person picking up child after
There's
child after
14
child.
Hold
using
on just a
different
minute. Let me just, I know this is crazy. I'm
Secretary,
so sorry.
nobody complained about it.
Secretary, you said that everybody who works on health policy.
Companies, any stuff.
Oops, no, not you.
Require background checks and require
There we go. Now we're better, I
identification
think.
even. I've watched horror stories of
not
the
quite,
same person picking up child after child after child, using different names and different addresses.
And I remember back then you talking about the importance of science and environmental action at that time. Listening to a lot of your discussion and a lot of the messages that you provide to people, you talk a lot about corporate influence and corruption in government. And this is an area that's very important to me, and it's an area that I do a lot of work in. I am, as a public servant, completely financially divested of any conflicts of interest with any healthcare
what's his top
companies, any
five?
stocks, any lawsuits that I would financially benefit from. Are you?
Yes.
You're completely
Nope, you're not.
divested.
Yes.
You
Nope,
have
you're
no
not.
financial interest in any lawsuit, crypto, none of that.
No. Oh, crypto? I own Bitcoin.
Okay. And do you have any other
No,
securities?
that's
or
not what she
assets?
means.
I don't, I mean, I had to go through this with the Office of Government Ethics, and I had a few interests
Run
that
by
were
Trump.
very minor that I divested.
Okay, just checking. I'd always like
no,
to.
it's a good question.
I always like
I'm
to know
glad you asked it.
what the field is before I enter conversations. So thank you for that. In the healthcare
There
space,
are some
something that we've
lawsuits
both
he's
spoken
benefiting
to
from.
Is that some of the worst actors are in the for-profit medical space.
He does own some slard.
Are in for-profit health insurance,
Yeah.
big pharma, et cetera. And one of the worst companies actually is United Healthcare in this respect. United Healthcare is the largest health insurance company in the country. They are the largest employer of doctors and own thousands of pharmacies, clinics, surgery centers, and home health agencies, as well as hospice providers. Secretary Kennedy, are you aware that President Trump's Department of Justice is reportedly investigating United Healthcare for criminal insurance fraud in some of their for-profit health insurance plans, like Medicare Advantage?
I'm not aware of that investigation.
You are not aware that the Trump Department of Justice is investigating
Wait, what?
the largest insurance company in America that
I'm not aware of.
for
You did it.
fraud in Medicare Advantage
You're the one who said it was
No, I'm
smart.
not aware of that.
that
but
you have jurisdiction over?
It doesn't surprise me.
Are you kidding me?
Okay. In
What?
your submitted testimony, you said
What? No.
HHS takes seriously our role as responsible stewards of taxpayer dollars. Are you aware that for-profit insurance corporations like United Healthcare have been found to be defrauding public dollars of more than $80 billion a year?
Oh, that's what he's got. Shart.
I'm not aware of that number, but
You're
I'm
not
aware
aware
that
of
there's
that?
fraud across the for-profit sector.
Respectfully, Secretary Kennedy, if we're making decisions around waste, fraud, and abuse, this is the largest source of waste, fraud, and abuse of public dollars in the public insurance
You
space.
say $80 million?
$80 billion a year.
Yeah.
80, did you
and-
say 80 million or 80 billion?
80 with a B.
With a B.
Billion.
With a B,
Yeah.
Yeah. You really look it up when you go back home.
If that's the case, why did you nearly double the rate that taxpayer dollars give for-profit insurance companies
Wait,
like
what?
United next year,
What?
if you don't know those things?
Double the rate? How did I do that?
So your agency nearly doubled
my
the
God.
taxpayer dollars that for-profit insurance corporations like United will be paid next year,
Yeah.
meaning these companies, the largest of whom is under investigation, criminal investigation by the Trump administration, will be receiving an additional $25 billion from your agency.
How is that happening?
I would be happy to submit to the congressional
Has he read
record
his own?
evidence
No?
of this.
Okay.
I will enter the CMS press release from April 7th of
Holy shit.
2025.
It's your press release,
into
sir.
the record, which states that Medicare Advantage corporations will now receive a 5.06% increase in payments next year under your jurisdiction, Mr. Secretary.
Well,
This is
without-
up from 2.2%.
I mean, we're raising.
Without
was
objection.
proposed from the Biden administration. You are doubling the rate that the Biden
The
that
gentlelady's
these
time has
criminally
expired.
investigated companies.
The gentlelady's time has
receiving.
expired.
Oopsie.
The chair now recognizes the gentleman from Michigan, Representative James, for 5 minutes of questioning.
Mr. Secretary, welcome. Thank you for your time and your service. I am grateful for you being here. We've gotten to have some real good conversations here today because when it comes to the health of this country,
But here
as has
we
been said
go.
many times before, we do not have a health care system. We have a sick care system.
Okay.
I'm just going to jump
Well, that's
directly
clever.
to my questions here. In your time and in your research,
I'm going to see if he's going to ask
do
anything
you
that I want to
have
hear.
any objectives or any ideas on how to reverse the perverse incentives and some of the abuses that are happening with big companies and big government that are hurting people right now?
Okay. I don't even know what that fucking question means. So that's
Pledged to
dumb.
us yesterday that
That's a
From New
dumb
York that
question.
You divested yourself, yeah?
Okay, wait, we
Talking to
gotta
industry folks about to hold them accountable for their
blah
pledges.
blah blah
the-
blah blah
the
blah 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 blah
largest
blah.
companies in the industry, and I brought them all together,
Yeah.
have now pledged,
Yeah.
made a pledge to us
Yeah.
yesterday that they're going to get rid of
They brought them all
80%
together.
of the prior authorizations. And they're also going to.
Oh, this is the prior authorization.
They're going to make their.
I gotta read that still.
Their systems interoperable, so it's much easier for a doctor to very quickly before you leave the office. You should have that prior authorization.
The gentleman's time has expired.
I
The
thought that
chair
said
now
and they ate the
recognizes the
Smurfs,
gentleman
and
from
I'm like,
Massachusetts,
Smurfs?
Representative Auchincloss,
Who invited
for
them?
5 minutes of questioning.
Good afternoon, Secretary. You've emphasized throughout your career concerns about corruption and conflicts of interest in healthcare, yes?
About corruption in healthcare?
Yes.
Yeah.
And you've pledged during your confirmation hearing and then again today, quote, radical transparency, yes?
Yes.
Yes. And you explained to my colleague from New
Don't
York that
do
you
it,
divested
RFK.
yourself,
Don't
yes?
do it.
Yes.
And you fired the 17 members of ACIP because you think they have conflicts of interest, yes?
Yes.
And do you think that everybody within Health and Human Services at a senior level should hold themselves to a standard of radical transparency and divestment?
Well, I'm going to hold them to that standard, but
so not everybody should hold themselves to a standard of
yeah,
radical
everybody, and the OGE makes them all divest.
So everybody should divest and everybody should be radically transparent. Who works for you?
Uh-oh, here we go.
Yes, and does that include people who have involvement in Health and Human Services policymaking, even if they're not in your department? Would you want them to be radically transparent as well?
Walking down the street.
I don't have any control over anybody except
we got a
those in the
chart.
department.
Well,
We got a
think
chart.
you do.
We have charts.
Let's talk,
Chart
though,
alert.
about how radically transparent you have been to date, because I want to ensure for the American public that they're getting what you pledged. Mr. Kelly Means is a special government employee. He's also a White House advisor. You know him well. He actually introduced you to Donald Trump. And he's the founder and the owner of TrueMed. Now, TrueMed is a company that sells saunas and supplements and maybe medical devices that you described to people with using pre-tax dollars. And he has described his mission as routing federal funds away from health insurance programs towards these health savings accounts. Now, Mr. Means has tremendous influence over Medicare and Medicaid based on the executive order on Making America Healthy Again and the One Big Beautiful Bill, which both call for the expansion
Big
of
ugly
HSA
bill, we call it bub.
usage for these wellness and supplement products. So that's a direct revenue stream for his company while he's working in the government. So my question is, would you require Mr. Means to sign the financial disclosure forms that you're very familiar with?
I have no power to do that, but I find it interesting that you bring that up.
I'm going to reclaim my
Are you
time.
gonna, no, you're not going to go after
for
him.
generations.
This is
None of you
my
complain
time,
about it.
Secretary,
Shut the
my
fuck
time.
up.
Would you require, in keeping with radical transparency, that this individual who you're very close with, who has a major role in shaping MAHA agenda, and you have said so yourself publicly and many times, would you require him, before working on the MAHA agenda, that he sign those disclosure forms?
I have no power to require that. I can require people in my agency, and I've done that.
Will you continue to work with him if he does not sign those forms? With Mr. Means, will you continue working with him if he does not sign those forms?
With a B?
I work with everybody, including all the pharmaceutical
Do you
companies.
think that he should? Do you think that he should
Are you
respond
gonna get
to the
them to
letter
sign
that
the
I
form?
wrote? Do you think that he should respond to the letter that I wrote, requiring him or asking him, I should say, to be transparent about potential conflicts of interest between TrueMed and CMS and the MAHA agenda? Is that something that he should do, in your opinion, in keeping with divestment? I mean, because you've said, sir.
You wrote me a letter?
He said, sir. You said
Are
before.
you saying you wrote me a letter?
I wrote Mr. Means a letter. Asking him to respond. Do you think he should respond?
That's between you and him. As I said, there's been pharmaceutical companies
you
for
said-
generations in the White House.
Okay, sir, but
Nobody
they don't work in the
complained
White
about it.
Secretary, you
House,
said
do
that
they?
everybody who works
Wait,
on
do
health
they?
policy should follow high standards of radical
This guy's a
transparency
terrible
and
obfuscator.
divestment.
You know what
So
I mean?
I've asked him
His
questions about
weave
whether
is
he's
really
done that.
weak.
Should he, in keeping with what you just said at the top of this, should he be radically transparent?
Let me ask you this. Have you accepted $400,000 from pharmaceutical
The reason
companies?
the reason you know that is because I have
Wow.
financial disclosure forms, and I'm asking him to submit the same thing. So should
Yeah.
he do the same thing? Because when he doesn't,
Should you
let's
do the
talk
same
about what
thing?
happened.
Should you do the
Let's
same
talk about
thing?
Mr. Brad
Should you
Smith.
be
You
prevented
asked-
from
you do the
accepting money
same
from
thing?
pharmaceutical companies? 'Cause
Yeah,
it says
reverse
here
Citizens
you've
United.
accepted
What?
400,000.
Mr. Kennedy,
Next.
you asked Ms. Ocasio-Cortez, how did I do that when she talked about the higher rates given to the Medicare Advantage organizations? I actually have an answer for you. How did that happen? The answer is Mr. Brad Smith.
Oops.
So he was in charge of Doge Healthcare, and his biggest investors at his company, Main Street Health, are the Medicare Advantage organizations, the 5 biggest health insurance corporations in America. They're his investors. He owns this company. They own him. And while he was there, he set the rules and reimbursements for CMS to hook up his investors.
What?
So I'm going to answer the question that you asked Ms. Ocasio-Cortez. It is because of
What?
conflicts of interest. Do you think that CMS should continue to do business with Main Street Health under your watch? Is that radically transparent?
Are you saying that we should cut Medicare Advantage?
Do you think that
Do
Main
you
Street
think
Health
that-
should continue
no,
to do
that's a
business
different
with Medicare and
question,
Medicaid
sir.
given the conflicts of
Are you
interest?
saying we should cut Medicare Advantage?
Mr.
No.
Kennedy, your dissembling and diversion distracts from the fact that you refuse to be radically transparent with
He didn't
either
give
Mr.
any
Means or Mr. Smith. I'm going to enter for the record now documents
You didn't give any money to
substantiate these
United.
claims.
Go
Auchincloss
have an
oversight letters to
aneurysm,
Means
Bob.
and the board of TrueMed and Main Street.
Without
Secretary's
objection.
He's drunk.
The gentleman's time has expired. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from California, Mr. Oberdumpty, for 5 minutes of
Humpty
questions.
Dumpty?
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Do,
Mr. Secretary, thank you for being here. I particularly
Dumpty
appreciate
dump.
your enthusiasm for using artificial intelligence to enhance
Something,
productivity
baby.
at HHS. I think in your testimony you said the AI revolution has arrived and
Okay,
to
you're
improve
weird.
healthcare.
Over Mr. Nolte. Oh, we'll stay with Mr. Carter
Have
from
been the
Louisiana.
cornerstone of domestic HIV prevention efforts. Do you know the percentage of all federal funding for HIV prevention provided by your agency, CDC?
Congressman, we don't intend to cut HIV treatment. We are, part of the reorg is reassigning HIV treatment.
But respectfully, sir, you have. It's
reassigning
not,
it
the
to what?
response to your answer to the question, what I'd like you to know, is it's 91% of all federal funding for HIV prevention, 91%. These cuts have been devastating for prevention of critical trials. You say you don't want to cut, but the reality is you have. Sir, in a second. According to a report in the American Association of Medical Colleges, AAMC, 160 active clinical trials associated with NIH overall were terminated in 2025, and more than 1/3 of those, 38%, investigating topics were related to HIV/AIDS. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to, with unanimous consent, enter into the record impact on NIH grant terminations that have been sanctioned and approved by this agency.
Without objection.
We have 27
There's no
HIV
question.
departments.
There's no question, bitch.
We spend $7.5 billion a year, not $1 billion, but $7.5 billion.
Okay.
Those are being consolidated and transferred to
How?
the
Respectfully, Mr.
agency for
Secretary.
Consolidated into what?
Respectfully, Mr. Secretary, there have been cuts. We're not talking about consolidation.
That's right.
We're talking about cuts midstream, in the middle of research, in the middle of
Exactly.
action. Cut. Let me be more specific, an example of what these cuts in HIV clinical trials mean.
You just can't even lie
Adolescent
about
Trial
it.
Network for HIV Intervention, which supports studies of teenagers and young adults, received a stop work order that shut down research at 14 sites where 7 studies were being conducted. Were you aware of that, sir?
We have not,
Were
as
you aware
far
of
as
that,
I
sir?
know, we have not cut
Sir,
any clinical
Were you
trials.
aware of that, sir, respectfully?
As I said.
Were you aware, sir? Yes or no? Either you were or you
As
weren't.
far as I know, we haven't cut any clinical
But I'm telling you by your own records you are, so
Yeah.
apparently that means you were not
Give me a
aware.
break.
Number
Stop
two, Mr.
lying.
Secretary,
I've heard
were you
from
aware
this
that your
side.
department green-lighted these grants for
I love
termination?
this man.
Did you make these decisions?
Like I said, as far a lot of the information that I've heard from this side of the aisle today has been untrue.
Really? So
Mischaracterization.
prove it
Mr.
wrong.
Secretary, you're testifying
Prove it.
that you are unaware
Prove it, bitch.
who within the
Prove it.
administration of your department
Prove it,
made
bitch.
decisions to
'Cause
terminate
they can
research
prove what
at
they're
14
saying.
sites where 7 studies were being conducted. This
Oh
is
my God.
unacceptable, sir. Lastly, I'd like to bring your attention to termination of HIV vaccine studies. These cuts make up $258 million. Secretary Kennedy, did you make the decision to terminate these studies?
I didn't personally make that decision, but I
Oh, so now you're saying they
you
were?
sanctioned them. How could you possibly justify such an action?
You just said you didn't cut any
We've been
studies.
studying been promising an HIV vaccine since 1984.
Okay.
And every year Congress pours money into it, and every year
Because they haven't come up with
Because they haven't come up with it
forward
yet.
motion by getting rid of NIH dollars
my
that
God.
critically do research that save lives, and because it hasn't happened yet, well, we
Show
haven't.
me
Sir,
one
sir,
life.
it's my time. It's my time.
Show me
sir,
one
it's
life.
my time, sir.
Show me one
I can show you a whole lot of lives if you got a minute.
Yeah,
I'm
you stupid
insulted that
fuck.
you would suggest that there aren't lives that
Exactly.
have been lost. People are dying every day, sir. And for you to say, show me one, there are people all over this country that are suffering the loss of their loved ones. Sir, here's the reality. Here's a whole bunch of studies that I'd like to submit for unanimous consent to the record that will debunk many of the things that you're saying and will in fact prove that you aren't being forthright with us or the American people. May I, sir?
Without objection.
As we look and we listen and we see where we are, the challenge and the fear, sir, of the state of now and the arrogance and the unwillingness to be forthright with the American people. Mr. Secretary, your uncle, President John F. Kennedy, and your father, Senator Robert F. Kennedy, were towering champions for working Americans, for justice, for dignity.
You know, I think
and
it
for
is
those without a
lagging.
voice.
I don't know what to
They
say.
fought
I'm not sure what's
to
causing
lift
that.
people up. So I'll ask this rhetorical question as I end.
The gentleman's
What
time has
What
expired.
happened?
The
What
gentleman's
happened?
time has
What
expired.
happened?
The chair
it.
now
What
recognizes
happened?
the gentleman from New
I
York,
yield.
Mr. Langworthy, for 5 minutes of questioning.
Thank you very much, Mr.
Minutes of questioning.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary, for being here. You were talking earlier about maternal health, and I want to just come back to maternal health and the disparities that exist in this country, particularly between black moms and everyone else. There is a bipartisan effort that emerged from this committee before I got here. Mr. Carter and others supported the Safe Motherhood and Infant Health Program. Now, this is an effort at HHS that focuses entirely on best practices, collecting data, trying to figure out maternal health to improve healthy birth outcomes, et cetera. I think, and I genuinely believe this was zeroed out either accidentally or by some sort of oversight, because obviously there's no waste, fraud, and abuse here. This is just the data collection associated with obviously a huge priority of yours, which is maternal health. So as we sort of go through this budget process, is this one area where you're willing to work with us to see if, in fact, we can restore funding for
Don't be so
that is
nice.
saving the lives of mothers,
Don't be nice.
helping to eliminate these
Will you
disparities,
commit?
and
Stop
obviously
that.
improving
That time
birth
is
outcomes
past.
across
We're
the country.
past the will you commit
100%,
language.
I'd love to operate on a bipartisan basis. If you contact my office, I'm happy to meet with you about it.
All right, great.
This is a program that came out of this committee. I don't know if it was unanimous, Mr. Carter, Mr. Chairman. I suspect it was, but it got zeroed out. So maybe okay. Number two,
Head
sure
start,
everyone,
sir.
because I'm getting calls on a regular basis from folks back home that they aren't sure. If
I'm not. This guy needs to fucking grow a pair. Just fucking say your shit, okay? Don't fuck around.
Children.
Oh my
Head
God.
Start funding is okay. That's not going to get touched.
Yeah, I mean, my uncle, Sergeant Shriver, started Head Start.
No, I'm not doing it. How dare you? How dare you bring up Sergeant Shriver and the fact that you were even somewhat related to him? How fucking dare you? Oh my fucking God. That was too much. Sorry, everybody. Okay, I'm not going to continue with that. I will definitely link it in the description of the video. You will find it. And yeah, it's probably mine because I feel like mine's lagging. Okay, it's probably just it. Yeah, he's nothing like his uncle. Fuck that guy. Anyway, here's what is going to happen tonight. Tonight. Tonight we're going to have Documentary Tuesday on the Discord. Documentary Discord. Whoop whoop. And tonight we're watching Surviving Ohio State, which is the documentary recently made about the allegations of sexual abuse to the in the wrestling program at Ohio State University, which was partly overseen by, oh my God, guess who? Jimmy Jordan. That's right. Little Jimmy Jordan. So, whatever, Jimmy Jordan. But we're going to watch that documentary tonight. That's at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern on the Discord. I'll be posting all the information on my Blue Sky and on my X and on my YouTube, on the community post. I'll put it in the Discord, everything, all the things, all the places, all the right places, all the right pills. Yeah, so we're going to go ahead and put all that in there, and I'll put the descriptions of all the things we watched today in the description of the video as well. So that'll be up later today. But anyways, wow. Just wow. Wow, this man is so unserious. This is such an unserious person to be running and making so many very important decisions for the health of everyone, including ourselves, the ones we love, people we don't know, our future children, our grandchildren, great-grandchildren, whatever. This Nimrod is in a power position, and I don't even know how to think about it. I just don't even know how to think about it. Anyway. Dangerous. He's just a little bit dangerous. And someday he's gonna kill all of us if his boss doesn't do it first. with bombing other countries that we're not in wars with. Okay. Well, let's take a deep breath. Hang in there. It's only Tuesday. I hope the rest of your Tuesday goes well. I hope you get something yummy to eat. I'm going to go find something yummy to eat right now. Okay. Adore you guys. Thanks for spending so much time with us this morning. And I hope I see you tonight on Discord. And I hope I see you tomorrow morning on Wake and Bake with Lolo. That's right. Because we're coming back tomorrow right here at Lolo's